morning, everyone. We are very happy to have you all here for the launch of this very important initiative. Let's just look at why we are all here this morning. People may be born with or develop disabilities during their lifetime, but they are disabled every day by society, by attitudes and perceptions that don't think of them as equal, by spaces that don't account for them, by infrastructure that often acts as a barrier, and by a lack of consideration of the complex diversity of persons with disabilities and their very specific needs. And what does this do? It means that less than 40% of India's people with disabilities have jobs. It means that as many as 75% of 5-year-olds with disabilities aren't in schools, and that 12% of children with disabilities have dropped out of school. Welcome to the start of a conversation about inclusivity, diversity, accessibility. The creation of a platform where we try to understand where the challenges lie and what we can do to tackle them. What can we do as governments? What can we do as corporates? What can we do as citizens and as human beings? Welcome to Samarth by Hyundai.
आज एक पहल बदलाव की हंडे द्वारा समर्थ एक कोशिश है कि हम अपने समाज को एक खास वर्ग के प्रति जागरूक और समावेशी बनाएं। हमारा समाज का नजरिया विकलांगों के प्रति क्या है? क्या हम संवेदनशील हैं? क्या हमने भरपूर कोशिश की है कि इनके जीवन को आसान बनाने की? क्या हमने अपने विकलांग नागरिकों की जरूरतों को ठीक से समझा है? इनकी विविधता पर क्या हमने गौर किया है? तो आज हंडे द्वारा समर्थ के तहत एक शुरुआत उन कदमों को उठाने की जिसने हम अपने समाज के इस हिस्से को अच्छी सुविधा दिला पाएं, समाज को जागरूक और एक सशक्त जीवन इन्हें हम दिला पाएं। हमारी पहल रहेगी सरकार, उद्योग जगत, नागरिकों को शामिल कर बदलाव लाएं, जवाबदेही भी तय करें और मॉनिटरिंग भी करें। सबसे अहम यह है कि इस विषय पर संवाद, मंथन, चर्चा बनाए रखें।
How much of India's landscape has been designed with the needs of the disabled in mind? For people with disabilities, negotiating everyday life, something we take completely for granted, brings a daily set of challenges that in many cases we are not even aware of or sensitive to.
तो आइए इस पहल की हम शुरुआत करते हैं। ये बेहद ख़ास मेहमान इसलिए हैं क्योंकि ये इंस्पिरेशनल फिगर्स हैं हमारे सामने। इन्होंने अपने जीवन को ही आसान नहीं बनाया, बल्कि हमारे उस वर्ग को भी आसान बनाया, उनके जीवन को, और एक महत्वपूर्ण दिशा निर्देश भी हमें देते हैं। तो आइए शुरुआत करते हैं। मेरे साथ मेरी सहयोगी सोनिया तो हैं ही, डॉक्टर सत्येंद्र सिंह हमारे साथ हैं। टिफनी बरार एंड विराली मोदी हमारे साथ हैं। तो पहले मैं आपसे ये डॉक्टर साहब जानना चाहूँगी, सबसे पहले ये जीवन आसान तो नहीं रहा होगा, आप डॉक्टर बने, अपनी लड़ाई लड़ी, अपना जीवन जिया, लेकिन एक बहुत आपने अहम जो जीवन आसान बनाने का ज़रिया है, सुगम बनाने का ज़रिया है, राह आसान बनाने का तरीका है, वो आप इस वर्ग के लिए लेकर आए। आपने जो यूपीएससी के उम्मीदवार हैं, आईजी के जो उम्मीदवार हैं, उनको एक तरह से हमेशा डिसेबिलिटी प्रूफ देना पड़ता था, तस्वीरें देनी पड़ती थी। आपने कहा, आपने एक जद्दोजहद लड़ाई लड़ी और आपने कहा कि जो सर्टिफिकेट है वो ही सर्वमान्य है। तो आप ज़रा दर्शकों को, हमारे लोगों को बताइए कि किस तरह से राह रही है आपकी।
थैंक यू निधि जी। मेरा जन्म रेवाड़ी के एक छोटे से गांव में हुआ था, हरियाणा में, और 9 महीने के बाद मुझे पोलियो हुआ। एंड इट वाज सॉर्ट ऑफ अ ब्लेसिंग इन डिस्गाइज, बिकॉज मेरे पोलियो होने की वजह से मुझे गांव से शहर लाया गया, हमें अच्छी अच्छी एजुकेशन मिली। लेकिन जैसे आपने कहा कि वो कहते हैं ना, ज़िंदगी हर कदम एक नई जंग है, तो हर कदम पे हमको प्रूव करना पड़ता है कि वी एग्जिस्ट, वी आर ह्यूमन बीइंग्स। आपने रेप्स की छोटी सी चीज़ है, आप सोचिए कि कितना इनडिग्निफाइड ट्रीटमेंट है कि आपको अपनी विकलांगता, जो कि डॉक्टर आपको एग्जामिन कर रहे हैं, उसके बाद उसका सबूत देना पड़ता है, फोटोग्राफ्स दिखाने पड़ते हैं कपड़े उतार के अपने डिफॉर्म्ड लिम्स के साथ। इज़ इट राइट? इज़ इट एथिकल? एंड दिस हैज़ बीन डन बाय मेडिकल डॉक्टर्स जो एथिक्स पढ़ाते हैं। मैं खुद एक मेडिकल डॉक्टर हूं, तो दूसरों से पहले मैं खुद पर उंगली उठा रहा हूं। लेकिन इसका रीज़न एक ये है कि अक्सर जो हमारा समाज भी है, हम विकलांगता को एक अभिशाप की तरह से देखते हैं, जिसको हम बोलते हैं मेडिकल मॉडल ऑफ डिसेबिलिटी। मुझे कोई दिक्कत है, जिसे वो कहते हैं ना कि पीपल आर बॉर्न विद इम्पेयरमेंट्स, इट्स द सोसाइटी विच मेक्स देम डिसेबल्ड। मेरी क्या ज़रूरतें हैं? मेरा छोटी छोटी सी उम्मीदें हैं कि जैसे आपको अधिकार है कि आप हर जगह सुगम्यता से जा सकते हैं, वही मेरी भी एक रिक्वेस्ट है। आपका अधिकार पढ़ाई का है, मेरा भी अधिकार पढ़ाई का है। मैंने कोई बड़ा काम नहीं किया डॉक्टर बन के, दुनिया में हज़ारों डॉक्टर बनते हैं, लेकिन जब एक विकलांग इंसान डॉक्टर बनता है तो उसको क्यों आसमान पे चढ़ा दिया जाता है? 3 दिसंबर को सिर्फ 2 ही कहानियाँ आती हैं उन लोगों की who have overcome their disability. We have not overcome our disability. We live with each and every moment with our disability. We are disabled and we are proud. क्योंकि अगर मुझसे आप पूछिए कि अगले जन्म में मैं विकलांग होना पैदा चाहूँगा, तो शायद मैं कह सकता हूँ हाँ, बिकॉज इट हैज़ गिवन मी द पावर ऑफ रिजिलियंस, परसिवियरेंस, जो बहुत से इंसान शिखर पर पहुँचकर भी नहीं पा पाते हैं। मेरी विकलांगता ने मुझे वो सिखाया है, और ये बेसिक चीज़ें हैं जो मैं आपसे डिमांड करता हूँ। राइट टू एजुकेशन, राइट टू एम्प्लॉयमेंट। क्रिकेट वर्ल्ड कप अभी ख़त्म हुआ है, कितने बार आपने देखा था कोई व्हील चेयर यूज़र स्टेडियम में बैठा था? सिनेमा हॉल्स। कल मेरी शादी को 19 साल हो जाएंगे। इन 18 सालों में मेरी शादी के अलावा मैंने किसी भी स्टेज पर आज तक रैंप नहीं देखा। क्या ये इतना मुश्किल है? विराली जी भी आगे बात बताएंगे कि छोटी छोटी खुशियाँ जो हमारी ज़िंदगी की होती हैं, उनके लिए भी हमें जद्दोजहद करनी पड़ती है, गिड़गिड़ाना पड़ता है। इट्स हाई टाइम दैट वी शुड टॉक अबाउट डिसेबिलिटी एज ए डाइवर्सिटी, एज ए ह्यूमन राइट इशू।
Dr. Singh, thank you for those inspiring words. I hope this initiative will really pick that up, that really it's about the little joys of life, which have such a big meaning for so many of us, because really all of us are humans together today. And Virali, if you could come in, because your struggle for really something so simple, My Train too, the Indian Railways carries millions of Indians every day. It's fated around the world for that feat. Yet why is it sometimes exclusionary for those with disabilities? Tell us about your struggle to change that.
I want to start off by saying that I wasn't born with a disability. I was able to walk. I became disabled just suddenly, randomly. Doctors have no idea. But that's not the point. The point right now is I wanted to travel to Delhi via Mumbai, from Mumbai via train. I went there. There was a ramp to get onto the platform, but there was no ramp to get inside the train. There were steps. And even the disabled compartment, there was one huge step to get inside, and I wasn't able to sit with my mother at that point of time. My mother had to call 2 porters. They had to lift me up, and I was molested because they had to carry me. Because apparently, since I'm disabled, I'm an easy target. And yeah, I say that because it's true. It's the bitter truth. This is how people think. There have been so many cases where this has happened. But this is the thing, right? There are so many people with disabilities who may not have the means to travel by, let's say, by car or by plane. They would prefer to go by train. So why aren't our trains accessible? Why do people need to be subjected to such kind of scrutiny? Why do we need to be carried? Again, we are not luggage. We're not pieces of just flesh. We're human beings. We have our dignity. We have our integrity.
बिल्कुल आपने सही कहा, सहानुभूति भी दिखाते हैं लोग, लेकिन संवेदनशील होने की बहुत ज़रूरत है. ये अपने आप में अहम है. मेरा सवाल टिफ़नी से ये है, टिफ़नी की आपने स्पेशल एजुकेशन में बीएड किया है और एक मोबाइल स्कूल भी शुरू किया जो लोग देख नहीं सकते. आपकी खुद की जर्नी भी बहुत इंस्पिरेशनल रही है. प्लीज़ टेल अस समथिंग अबाउट योर जर्नी.
Well, I was born to a North Indian military family. और जब मैं पैदा हुई थी तब मेरे फैमिली को एक बहुत बड़ा शॉक मिला क्योंकि मुझे ओवरडोज ऑफ ऑक्सीजन के कारण मेरी आईसाइट चली गई और मुझे बाहर लेके गए थे ऑपरेशंस के लिए, बट टू नो अवेल. So I feel that I became blind for a reason, because if I was not blind, I would not be sitting here today. I would be minding my own business and doing some other work in a field which would not be rewarding or which would not give me a calling to serve others or help others. क्योंकि जब तक हमें पता नहीं चलता है कि औरों का दुख कैसे होता है, या जब तक हमारे फैमिली में किसी मेंबर को डिसेबिलिटी नहीं होती है या समस्या नहीं आता है, तब तक हमें कुछ मतलब ही नहीं है सोशल गुड से. हम सोचते हैं अच्छा हमारी ज़िंदगी तो अच्छी चल रही है. फॉर इंस्टेंस आई हैड हर्ड दैट बिकॉज वन ऑफ द वेरी eminent people from Microsoft had a relative with disability. Therefore, everything in Microsoft has now been made completely accessible because he or she could understand how painful it is for a person with disability to access the various applications in Microsoft. So, वैसे ही मैं बस अपने जर्नी के ऊपर एक छोटा सा दिशा देना चाहती हूँ आप लोगों को. I started my primary education in Britain. मेरे फादर की फॉरेन पोस्टिंग थी एंड वहाँ सब इंक्लूसिव था, सब एक्सेसिबल थी. मुझे शुरुआत में ही एक सपोर्ट असिस्टेंट सिर्फ मुझे पढ़ाने के लिए मिला था और उन्होंने मुझे टच और फील से पढ़ाया था. लर्निंग बाय डूइंग. ब्रेल मशीन मुझे मिली थी. लेकिन जब हम वापस इंडिया आए मेरे 2nd स्टैंडर्ड में, तब ब्लाइंड स्कूल में स्लेट और स्टाइलस के सहारे से लिखना पड़ा, नीचे बैठना पड़ा, खाने के लिए हमें काफ़ी दूर तक जाना पड़ता था और वाइट केन इस्तेमाल करने के लिए किसी ने हमें सिखाया नहीं था. तो हम कैटरपिलर्स जैसे शोल्डर पे हाथ रख के आगे पीछे ऐसे लाइन में जाते थे. और फिर मेरी ज़िंदगी की एक टर्निंग पॉइंट जब आई, तब जब मैं इंक्लूसिव स्कूल, आई वुडंट से इंक्लूसिव स्कूल बट अ स्कूल विच कुड नॉट हैंडल डिसेबल्ड चिल्ड्रन, ऐसे एक स्कूल में गई और एक्चुअली टीचर ने एक क्वेश्चन पूछा, व्हाट इज़ द कैपिटल ऑफ इंडिया. तो मेरे क्लासमेट ने बोला Kolkata, without thinking, and I stood up and I said, hey, it's New Delhi. तो मेरे टीचर ने कहा, shut up because you're blind. Get out of my class. You have made your classmate give the wrong answer so that you could make an impression and give the right answer. तो अगर मैं blind हूँ तो इसका मतलब यह है कि मैं सही जवाब नहीं दे सकती हूँ. तब मेरे दिल में 9 साल की उम्र में आया कि मैं अपने blind सोसाइटी में एक परिवर्तन लेकर आना चाहती हूँ कि कोई भी ब्लाइंड बच्चा ऐसे बैक बेंच में ना बैठे, कोई भी ब्लाइंड बच्चा ऐसे प्लास्टिसिन से ना खेले, कोई भी ब्लाइंड बच्चे को क्लास में जवाब देने से टीचर्स ना रुकाए और उनको पढ़ाने के लिए सही सलामत जान सके. तब मैं बड़ी हुई एंड देन आई वर्कड I did my degree
जी.
and then I did my B.Ed in special education. I worked in an organization called Braille Without Borders. एक international organization है जिसकी founders भी blind हैं और उन्होंने social entrepreneurship सिखाने का मकसद है उनका. तो वहाँ मैंने 8 साल काम किया और फिर मैंने मोबाइल स्कूल स्टार्ट किया जहाँ कि हम ब्लाइंड लोगों के घरों में जाते थे थ्रू वेरी inaccessible pathways, थ्रू वेरी inaccessible roads जहाँ कि ब्लाइंड लोग खुद भी चल नहीं सकते, उनके घर ऐसे रूरल एरियाज में थे. और हमने
आपकी इस यात्रा से बहुत अनुभव मिलेगा और दिशा मिलेगी हमारी इस पहल को. डॉक्टर सत्येंद्र सिंह, आपसे ये क्या सुझाव आप देना चाहेंगे तत्काल रूप से जिन पर अमल किया जा सकता है, जिन पर वाकई सरकारें, कॉरपोरेट्स, हम नागरिक ध्यान दे सकते हैं?
महाराष्ट्र के एक बड़े ही प्रसिद्ध भील आदिवासी समाज सुधारक हैं जो कविताएं लिखते हैं. उनकी एक छोटी सी कविता है जो सुझाव की तरफ जाएगी, जिसका मैं अंग्रेजी अनुवाद कर रहा हूँ. We did not go on to the stage, neither were we called. We were shown our places, told to sit. But they, sitting on the stage, went on telling us of our sorrows. Our sorrows remained ours. They never became theirs. Vaharu सोनावले फ्रॉम महाराष्ट्र. एक छोटा सा सुझाव जो है कि जितने भी VVIPs हैं, चीफ गेस्ट्स हैं, अगर वो किसी भी फंक्शन में जा रहे हैं, सो दे शुड मेक इट अ प्रायोरिटी टू यूज़ ओनली द रैम्ड एक्सेस, बिकॉज देन इट विल शो देम द ब्लाइंड स्पॉट्स जो बाकी लोगों को नहीं दिखते. नहीं तो लोग आएंगे, फीता काटेंगे, वो स्टेज पर बैठेंगे, हमारी बातें करेंगे और उन्हें लगेगा कि सब कुछ बढ़िया है. सब कुछ बढ़िया नहीं है. दूसरी बात, नथिंग अबाउट अस विदाउट अस. ये डिसेबिलिटी राइट्स मूवमेंट का मंत्र है. जब पॉलिसीज़ बनती हैं इन द आइवरी टावर, जब मिनिस्टर्स बनाते हैं, दे नीड टू इन्वॉल्व पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटीज़. अभी भी हमारा ध्यान सिर्फ 3 मेजर विकलांगताओं के ऊपर है: लोकोमोटर डिसेबिलिटी, डेफनेस एंड ब्लाइंडनेस. वी आर नाउ टॉकिंग अबाउट 21 डिसेबिलिटीज़. व्हाट अबाउट डेफ ब्लाइंडनेस? व्हाट अबाउट न्यूरोडाइवर्जेंट पीपल, न्यूरो एटिपिकल पीपल? What about people with invisible disabilities, people with psychosocial disabilities? When you make policies, you involve them in decision making. So these are the 2 small steps which I would propose that which can perhaps bring change and an inclusive society.
Virali, I wanted to bring in that aspect. Dr. Singh spoke so eloquently of the need of change of policy and the thinking of a government, but what about the social change, the social movement needed? The point you made very eloquently, that don't treat us like pieces of luggage or flesh. We are human beings and we have sensitivities too. What are the 3 simple things you feel that people sitting in this hall, people around you could actually change to make life more inclusive?
First of all, I want everyone to understand this. Everyone sitting here, everyone watching this, you're all temporarily abled. You're going to need a wheelchair one day. You're going to need a cane, a walker, crutches, some kind of assistive mobility device. Either you, either your family, either your neighbor. And at that point of time, when you can't access anything or you can't even step out of your house, do not come and crib and whine and cry and say, why is India not accessible? Right now, you all have the ability to talk about it, to raise your voice. It's not just our responsibility as people with disabilities to come out and talk about inaccessibility. You all can too, because there's power in numbers. So imagine just going to a restaurant, just imagine 5 people going to a restaurant that's inaccessible every single day, talking to the management and demanding that a ramp be there. Don't you think that they're going to change it? So it's not our responsibility. We need to be the change that we want. We need to raise our voice. It's not just for us, it's for everyone. Accessibility will benefit everybody, not just us.
डॉक्टर सिंह, आपने एक शुरुआत ये भी की और कई आपने जो हक हैं हमारे इस वर्ग के उनके लिए काम किया है. ATMs, पोस्ट ऑफिस जो हैं वहाँ पर सुगम्य रास्ते हों, इन बेसिक ज़रूरतों के लिए भी जद्दोजहद करनी पड़े.
जी बिल्कुल निधि जी, क्योंकि अगर हम बात करें बैंक और पोस्ट ऑफिस की तो ये एसेंशियल सर्विसेज में आती हैं और मुझे बोला गया था कि फर्स्ट फ्लोर पर हैं तो हम आपके लिए लिफ्ट नहीं लगा सकते. 5 साल की जद्दोजहद मुझे लगी मेरे मेडिकल हॉस्पिटल के एटीएम और पोस्ट ऑफिस को सुगम्य बनाने के लिए। एक बड़े प्रीमियर इंस्टीट्यूशन जो भारत की राजधानी में है, जिनके पास पैसे की कोई कमी नहीं है, उनके वहाँ लाइब्रेरी में लिफ्ट लगाने के लिए मुझे 7 साल लगे। तो बहुत लंबी लंबी लड़ाइयाँ हैं जिसके लिए हमें काम करना पड़ता है। 2 चीज़ जो इम्पोर्टेंट हैं, टॉप डाउन अप्रोच और बॉटम अप अप्रोच। टॉप डाउन अप्रोच में वी नीड द सपोर्ट ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट व्हेन दे मेक दीज पॉलिसीज टू इन्वॉल्व अस। द सेकेंड इम्पॉर्टेंट थिंग इज़ अगेन वी, जो हमारा समाज है विकलांगता समाज, जिसमें जो लोग विकलांगता के साथ पैदा होते हैं, और एक काफ़ी बड़ा तकबा है जो कि डिसेबिलिटी को एक्वायर करता है। भारत डायबिटीज़ की राजधानी है, रोड ट्रैफिक एक्सीडेंट्स होते हैं, क्रॉनिक इलनेसेस, दे ऑल लेड टू डिसेबिलिटी। So we need to think that this is a very larger sector who will acquire disability. इसलिए जब हम बात करते हैं accessibility की, तो it is not only related to people with disabilities.
Dr. Singh, I'm just going to bring in on those points you made. Aditi Tatkare has joined us again, the Women and Child Development Minister of Maharashtra. Ms. Tatkare, we've been talking to 3 prominent disability advocates who are saying that we need our voices heard when policies are made. Now, Maharashtra is the first state to have a dedicated ministry for the disabled. How has that actually helped, and what change has that brought in the lives of those who need it?
Firstly, I thank the channel for bringing in this such an important discussion and having prominent people who have been working for the disabled and specifically for them from last so many years. I personally feel their suggestions and their support is important for any state government or be it central government for that matter, who which emphasizes on giving importance and bringing this disabled the people and giving them equal importance compared to the other departments as well. So Maharashtra is the first government which has come up with this Divyang disabled department, and not only coming up with the department but giving it one of the highest budgets, making good provisions for it so that we can actually make difference. This is the first year of the department, and I'm sure through this we'll be able to concentrate more on the various schemes, be it central or state government schemes, and basically penetrate them to the needy and the disabled people. There are so many government schemes which are actually available for disabled that we need to actually promote them and make them reach this sector, this section, so that they can benefit from these various schemes. So I personally feel that every state government should actually initiate a separate department and make sure that they coordinate well with the other departments as well. For instance, I am handling or I am representing the Women and Child Development Department. We have a section, we have few basically not completely, but we are connected to the disabled section as well in terms of women. When we come up with programs or when we come up with schemes, they are indirectly related to disabilities. Then there is a School and Education Development Department, which is again indirectly connected to them as well. So basically what we need to do and what we are trying to do from this different department that's been created is connect with the various departments which are indirectly linked to this section that is disabled.
आदित्य जी, आपकी सरकार ने डोर टू डोर सर्वे भी कराया जिससे कि जो तमाम स्कीम्स हैं सरकार की उनको इम्प्लीमेंट किया जा सके, जो अपना विकलांग वर्ग है किस तरह से मददगार साबित हुआ है, कुछ जानकारी साझा करना चाहें तो।
एक तो ये सर्वे काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट रहता है क्योंकि अगर हम उनके पास सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट या स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स की स्कीम्स पहुंचाना चाहते हैं, अगर लाभार्थी की संख्या, बेनिफिशरीज की संख्या अगर हमें बढ़ानी हो या एक्चुअल जो बेनिफिशरीज है उनकी तरफ पहुंचना हो, तो ये सर्वे काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट है। मैंने ज़िला परिषद की प्रेसिडेंट भी मैं रही हूँ, मैंने ज़िला परिषद की प्रेसिडेंट भी उस वक्त भी मुझे याद है कि डिस्ट्रिक्ट वाइज भी हम ये सर्वेस करते थे, तो हमारे पास एक आंकड़ा फिक्स रहता था कि कितने विकलांग या कितने डिसेबल्ड लोग हैं जिले में जिनके पास ये स्कीम्स पहुंचनी चाहिए, जिनके पास ये योजनाओं की हमें उनकी तरफ जानकारी देनी चाहिए और उनको बेनिफिट देना चाहिए। तो ये सर्वेस काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट रहते हैं। एक तो ग्राउंड लेवल लाभार्थी की संख्या बढ़ाने में वो एक है, और दूसरी बात जब हम एक सेपरेट डिपार्टमेंट बनाते हैं तो ओवरऑल उनके कितने बेनिफिशियरी स्टेट में रहेंगे उसके लिए ये सर्वेस काफ़ी महत्वपूर्ण है। तभी हम उसका बजट, उसके वेरियस स्कीम्स या the basic intention of forming the department is benefiting them. So once we have the survey in hand, only then we can actually reach out the needy and the actual beneficiaries. So I feel it is very important to have that number, exact number or the approximate number of beneficiaries for any scheme for that matter. So I think this is one of the primary stages and the most important stages of having survey and having the number of beneficiaries.
अदिति जी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद कि आपने ये इस ओर कदम बढ़ाया, क्योंकि बहुत महत्वपूर्ण मंत्रालय है और जिस तरह से महाराष्ट्र में ये पहला मंत्रालय इस तरह से बनाया गया है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जुड़ने के लिए। उम्मीद करते हैं आपकी जो योजनाएं हैं ज़मीन पर लागू होंगी जल्दी।
Tiffany, we just heard the minister there, the Minister of Women and Child, and she made the point that there needs to be very close coordination with the Ministry for Disabled or that department for every government department. Do you think, especially for women and child, and it's so important as you talked about your own experiences, to sensitize government officials, policy makers to what children with disabilities go through? What would you like to say, respond to what she said, and what would you suggest are 3 things that you could do really from childhood for people who suffer from these disabilities, for children who suffer from disabilities?
Well, all organizations talk about early intervention, but this early intervention should be done in a very proper manner, especially in the schools. Now, when we have resource teachers, जब हम resource teachers के बारे में कहते हैं तो हम कहते हैं कि सारे government स्कूलों में resource teachers का प्रबंध किया गया है, लेकिन these resource teachers, are they specialized in the disability that is required? Like, I am studying in a school, if I'm studying in DPS Arkepuram, suppose, and the resource teacher appointed in that school is specialized in hearing impairment or in autism spectrum disorder or in mental retardation, how will that help me? So there should be resource teachers allocated by the government according to the children's needs in that particular school. तो ये नहीं हो रहा है, cluster model हो रहा है जहाँ की एक resource room होता है बच्चों के लिए, उन्हें सिर्फ engage कराया जाता है और एक रिसोर्स टीचर होती है, वो थोड़ा बहुत लेसन्स वगैरह सिखाती है, लेकिन उनका वो जो ट्रेनिंग है वो स्पेशलाइज नहीं है, तो इसलिए बहुत सारे डिसेबल बच्चे उसका फ़ायदा नहीं उठा पा रहे हैं. दैट इज़ वन. सेकंड थिंग इज़ फॉर वुमेन देयर शुड बी सम exclusive classes on reproductive health, menstrual hygiene, all these kind of things, especially for women with mental illness, mental disability and autism, locomotor disability, because more than
बहुत अहम बात कही कि स्कूल में किस तरह से जो विविधता है समावेशी होनी चाहिए स्कूल में, और जो विविधता है उसको समझना है हमें. अगर मैं विराली आपके पास आऊँगी, आप व्हील चेयर मिस इंडिया में सेकंड आई, ये अपने आप में बहुत खूबसूरत बात है, क्योंकि हमें जो हमारा ये वर्ग है सिर्फ पोस्ट ऑफिस, हॉस्पिटल्स, ATM ही नहीं जाना, जीवन को सुंदरता से, सशक्तता से जीना भी है. आपने एक नागरिक की तरह माई ट्रेन टू, एयरपोर्ट्स के लिए भी, ट्रेन्स के लिए भी, जो पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट है उसके लिए भी कैसे हम और जागरूक कर सकते हैं, किस तरह से जो सरकारें हैं, कॉर्पोरेट्स हैं, इस ओर वाकई में ज़मीन पर कदम उठा सकती हैं, क्या सुझाव आपके?
This is a little bit difficult for me to answer because there is no one right answer to this question. I've always believed कि advocacy starts at home. अगर हम हमारे घर को accessible नहीं बनाते, हम बाहर जाके कैसे expect करेंगे that other places will become accessible? We need to start at home. I think it starts with the right education in terms of sensitizing people. आप अगर अपने फैमिली मेम्बर्स को ही नहीं करोगे, आप बाहर जाके एडवोकेट करोगे, वो कैसे होगा? We will not see change. Again, collectively हमें सबको बोलना पड़ता है. We need to come out, we need to raise our voice. तब जाके when we actually have this voice out there, that's when people will want to do something about it. And that's where CSR corporates come into play as well. they can help out with these kinds of schemes. And that is how My Train 2 happened. It was through CSR initiatives and CSR projects. तब जाके तो accessible stations बने हैं.
बिल्कुल एर्नाकुलम के बाद आपने बताया 8 और राज्य थे जहां पर जो रेलवे स्टेशंस हैं वो डिसेबल फ्रेंडली बने.
I'd like to thank all of you. I think the points raised by each one of you are so important and really in taking forward this initiative. I'm so glad that your voices have made such important points. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you. And I would now like to invite back on stage Mr. Kim, the Managing Director and CEO of Hyundai Motor India, Mr. Tarun Garg, the CEO of Hyundai Motor India, Mr. J.T. Park, the Executive Director of Sales, Marketing and Services of Hyundai Motor India, and Sanjay Pugalia, the CEO and Editor-in-Chief of the AMG Media Network, to unveil the logo for Samarth by Hyundai. Thank you all so much. How wonderful it is to see that logo of what's going to be such a meaningful initiative. Thank you all very much. And we just take a very quick break at this point of the conversation. There's lots more ahead to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests of all genders and ages, we are honored to invite on stage Mr. Tarun Garg, CEO of Hyundai Motor India. It'll be great to have you on the stage with us, Mr. Garg, to the launch of Samarth by Hyundai. Mr. Garg, come, do join us. Well, we've seen and heard our disability rights advocates talk about how our spaces are often designed not keeping in mind, the differently abled, and this is a huge problem, obviously. How our attitudes and perceptions exist also plays, a key problem. And I think we really need to be discussing that as well. What do you believe is perhaps the major issue?
So Vishnu, I believe perception of disability is an important aspect that affects not only the well-being of individuals with disabilities, but also the moral compass of the society. A society with positive and sensitive attitudes towards disability will empower individuals with disabilities and lead to their social inclusions. And I feel sorry to say that we as a society have a long, long way to go on this aspect. Today, we take this platform to mark the beginning of Samarth by Hyundai, a purpose-driven initiative that defines what mobility truly means for Hyundai. We believe that every individual, regardless of their ability or disability, should have equal access to this great India, which is a true home of opportunities. This belief is also fully sensed with our company vision of progress for humanity.
Yeah.
Samarth, of course, we all know, meaning capable, is our step towards creating a more aware and inclusive society for differently abled individuals in India. We realize that we alone cannot change the entire landscape. So along with NDTV, we want to encourage all Indians, individually or as institutions, to equip the environment around them and generate equal mobility opportunity for every differently abled in India.
In fact, the numbers are quite startling. Our lack of understanding of what a person with a disability has to deal with just to negotiate everyday life is even more so. It is startling. What was Hyundai's thought behind this initiative?
So it's true that, Vishnu, we saw the numbers and we thought we could do a lot here. We have always believed that corporate success is not the only parameter of success, and we must be committed to a larger societal change. It is our responsibility to address the pressing issues in our community. We envision a society which is equitable for all, where there is no bar over opportunities and no glass ceilings. This thought manifested in form of Samarth by Hyundai initiative. It is under our global vision of progress for humanity, wherein we have taken up societal impacting issues across the world to initiate meaningful change.
What is your vision for Samarth by Hyundai? What do you hope to actually see this initiative achieving?
So Vishnu, with Samarth initiative, our vision is to create a society which is barrier-free, which is inclusive, and where differently abled are not disabled by the society due to lack of facilities. This, in our view, is truly mobility for all. Samarth is much more than an initiative. It will become a movement to change mindsets and spark change. We want all corporates and individuals to pledge and work together to create a more equitable and inclusive environment. We on our part have made significant pledges to make a meaningful impact. Hyundai is committed to creating mass-scale awareness and enablement for people with disabilities in India. We are also committing to internalize accessibility by making our dealerships and service centers more accessible. We are dedicated to make our cars differently able friendly for passengers, focusing on safety and comfort. And also, we are working towards making our website disabled friendly.
So we said at the start of the show that Samarth by Hyundai is a step towards creating a more aware and inclusive society. While we talk about accessible physical spaces, we also need to change our own attitudes and perceptions, many of which can often be even bigger barriers than physical ones. And we thought we'd do something quite special for larger societal change. We have to begin by changing our mindsets. That's what we are all asking for you to join us in doing today. Everybody over here, members of all genders and ages, on the tables in front of you are the Samarth by Hyundai Solidarity Badges. We invite you to please pick up one of these and put it on as a sign of your support for equal rights, equal opportunities, equal access and equal capabilities of those with disabilities. Thank you. I'd love to invite on the stage Mr. Ansu Kim, Managing Director and CEO of Hyundai Motor at this stage. Thank you very much for being with us. Well, now this initiative by Hyundai has had wonderful support, in fact, very able support in the form of two partners, Hyundai Motor India Foundation, which is the CSR arm of Hyundai Motor India. It's partnering with Go Sports Foundation and the Samarthanam Trust for the Disabled. Both partners will be supporting the initiative in different ways. I'd like to call up on this stage Deepthi Bopaya, the CEO of Go Sports Foundation, also Dr. Mahantesh GK, the founding managing trustee of Samarthanam Trust for the Disabled. Could both of you please come up on the stage? I just request you, Mr. Kim, to just share this memento and hand over this flag. All right, so let me come to you, Deepthi, first. In your 15 years, you've supported, 300 emerging and elite Indian athletes. 50 have represented the country. Those are staggering numbers, at the Olympics and Paralympics. In fact, you have 10, and I'm reading this off the screen because the numbers are quite large. 10 Paralympic medalists, 18 medalists from the recent Asian Para Games. I mean, this is remarkable because we talk about our wonderful cricketers, we talk about sports, but let's also spare a thought for incredible achievers that we are referring to over here at the Asian Para Games. What are you hoping to achieve specifically, through this partnership?
Very good morning to everyone and a big congratulations to Hyundai. I think it's an incredible initiative. Like our panelist earlier spoke about the fact that there's so much to do in this space, and what we're really looking forward to is we believe that parasports gives every athlete an ability to create an identity for themselves. A lot of times people with disabilities are sometimes shunned at homes, not allowed to really participate and not really enjoy the exuberance of what sports brings to you. So I think through this partnership, we're really looking forward to create awareness. We're looking forward to get lots of young people with disabilities into the world of sport, into parasport, and really take them to the best of their ability. It could be the Asian Games, it could be the Commonwealth Games, and ultimately the Paralympics. So really looking forward to this partnership. Thank you very much.
No, and we assure you that, by the end of this, there will be, a significant understanding among people in the country and a general sense of enthusiasm, a genuine sense. Dr. Mahantesh, Swarnathanam is a 5 times national award-winning trust, Samarthanam. Now, you've provided a wide range of support to people with disabilities from education, training, accommodation, nutrition. And of course, India's blind cricket teams, men and women, are winning today at the global level, doing so well. It's because you've grown the game and the players in India. What specific aspect of your work will this partnership be supporting?
Thanks for those lovely words, Vishnu. So this partnership will support Samarthanam, one to train and promote grassroots level men and women blind cricketers to pursue cricket as a professional sport, and it will help us to take them to next level, play at a national level, and subsequently prepare them to represent India. And also, cricket is just not a sport for us. This game builds a lot of positive qualities in people with visual impairment. It builds camaraderie, leadership quality, competitiveness, determination, and spirit. And through cricket, it enables them to travel around, meet people, and build confidence in themselves. And the most important part of this program is also supporting us to provide assistive devices which will enable persons with disability move comfortably, reduce their dependency, build independence, and focus on their ability, not on this disability. So in all, I think in 3 years, with the support of Hyundai, Samarthanam would have supported 1,000 people. I think it's a great partnership collaboration, and I am confident people with disability will remove their first 3 letters and they become capable contributors, and Samarthanam's vision is to make them taxpayers of this country.
In fact, I wanted to bring in Mr. Garg over here. So, how is this really about the spirit of what we are seeing, the sense of enthusiasm, the sense of hope, the sense of competition? How is Hyundai really seen this as being a key part of this initiative?
So I think there is no lack of enthusiasm, there is no lack of ability. It is just about facilitating. It is just about, giving that hand, and with a lot of conviction. What I have seen is that it cannot be a lip service. You have to actually believe in it. And let me tell you, yes, while we came here in the morning today, full of enthusiasm, it has grown manifold in the first 2 hours of today, when I've seen everybody talk, and I can see that there is so much more we as a company can do, and maybe inspire others to do as well, because we know that India is a big country, and once it becomes a movement, then there is nothing stopping us, So I think there's a lot of upside to it, and I myself am very, very enthused, that we have partnered, and I'm very, very encouraged to see our 2 NGO partners, and I'm sure that we will make some very meaningful difference, which can actually be measured, and we'll all be very proud of it, that yes, in November 23 we sat together, and we made a difference which we can all see and our future generations can see.
Well, it's time now for a very special performance. The Blind Relief Association is a leading NGO based in Delhi that's approaching the remarkable milestone of 8 decades of dedicated existence and a significant contribution to empowering visually impaired people through education and skill training as well. Amongst the many educational, vocational and training institutes that it runs is the Jormal Periwal Memorial Senior Secondary School for the Blind. That's a residential boys' school from nursery to class 12. So before we get them onto the stage, I'd like to thank you both very much for being with us.
Tu soch, 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 tu soch. अब तोड़ना है, तू सोच पहाड़ से भिड़ना है। तू सोच ले अब तोड़ना है, तू सोच पहाड़ से भिड़ना है। तू सोच के अंबर नापेंगे, तू सोच के गिर के उठना है। तू सोच, 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 तू सोच। तू जैसा जैसा सोचेगा हम वैसा मंजर कर देंगे। ओ, तू जैसा जैसा सोचेगा हम वैसा मंजर कर देंगे। तेरे जज्बे की शान में हम दुनिया सुंदर कर देंगे। तेरे जज्बे की शान में हम दुनिया सुंदर कर देंगे। मंजिल मंजिल तेरी साथ हमारा, मंजिल तेरी साथ हमारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। मंजिल तेरी साथ हमारा, मंजिल तेरी साथ हमारा। समर्थ है हाँ समर्थ है, तू समर्थ है मेरे यारा। समर्थ हो जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा। जीत ले हाँ जीत ले, हाँ जीत ले दुनिया यारा।
Hello everybody, I'm Gargi Rawat and I have a very accomplished co-anchor here with me today, Syamdev Mukherjee, who likes to go by Den. But Den, before we get started, I'd like to talk to these young men who sang so well just now. That was an amazing performance. It was very rousing, the anthem of Samarth by Hyundai, and if that very distinctive style hadn't already given it away, the lyricist for this anthem was Varun Grover, of course, and it has been composed by none other than Indian Ocean, one of my very favorite bands. बात करना चाहेंगे इस एंथम के बारे में।
आयुष, आपको ये गाना गा के कैसा लगा?
इस गाने को गाकर बहुत अच्छा लगा, एक जोश सा भर देता है ये शरीर में और ये बहुत अच्छा सॉन्ग है।
और आपको किस तरह का म्यूजिक पसंद है?
मैम, मैं तो अपने मूड के ऊपर है हूँ कि जब जैसा म्यूजिक मतलब जैसा मूड हो वैसा म्यूजिक सुनता हूँ। बाकी सैड सॉन्ग्स बहुत बढ़िया लगते हैं मेरे को सुनने।
अच्छा, और आप में से और भी कोई इसमें ऐड करना चाहेंगे म्यूजिक के बारे में? इसका क्या महत्व है आपके लिए, क्या इम्पोर्टेंस है?
म्यूजिक हमारी लाइफ का एक बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट पार्ट होता है, आप सभी को मालूम होगा। जैसे कि आप वर्क करते हैं कहीं, तो आप वर्क करते करते थोड़ा बहुत चिल करने के लिए म्यूजिक सुनते हैं। कभी आप मतलब कोई भी डिप्रेशन में हो तो उससे लड़ने के लिए म्यूजिक सुन सकते हैं। वोकल ही नहीं, जो इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स प्ले करते हैं, जो इंस्ट्रूमेंटल म्यूजिशियंस होते हैं, वो भी अपनी आत्मा, अपनी पूरे जीवन का संघर्ष जो है वो अपने इंस्ट्रूमेंट के ऊपर डालते हैं और उसकी अपनी जो फीलिंग होती है वो इंस्ट्रूमेंट के ऊपर तराश के आप सबको दिखाते हैं, तो कृपया वोकलिस्ट को ही नहीं, जो इंस्ट्रूमेंटल आर्टिस्ट है, जो डायरेक्टर है, उसको भी बहुत सपोर्ट चाहिए होता है।
जी बिल्कुल। और कोई कुछ ऐड करना चाहेंगे यहाँ पर? थोड़ा और बताइए, आप लोग कितना प्रैक्टिस करते हैं? अक्सर गाते हैं साथ में?
हर मतलब सॉन्ग को प्रैक्टिस पूरा करके उसके बाद उसके लिए मतलब उसको प्रिपेयर करने के लिए पूरा टाइम देते हैं अच्छे से, जब तक प्रिपेयर नहीं हो जाता, और पूरी उस पर मेहनत करते हैं।
इस सॉन्ग को पूरा ठीक से गाने में आपको कितना ज़्यादा प्रैक्टिस करना हुआ?
इस सॉन्ग को गाने के लिए हमें मतलब जैसे परसों हमारे पास ऑडियो आ चुका था, तो हमने कल दोपहर में इस सॉन्ग को प्रिपेयर करने में हमें 15 से 20 मिनट लगे थे, सिर्फ
15 to 20 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, only 15 to 20 minutes. Is this a magic? आप लोग कहाँ परफॉर्म कर चुके हो?
फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल तो यहाँ पे आके बहुत अच्छा लगा, पहली बार एक्सपीरियंस। हालांकि हम लोग कई बार कॉम्पिटिशन में बाहर जा चुके हैं, हमने डिस्ट्रिक्ट भी खेला हुआ है, हमने जोनल भी खेला हुआ लेवल, लेकिन हमने स्कूल में भी सारे जब प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं वहाँ पे हम पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं, बट यहाँ पे हम पहली बार आए हैं तो थैंक यू। और क्योंकि म्यूजिक जो है वो ऐसा कोई इंसान ही नहीं है जो म्यूजिक ना सुनता हो, कोई रेडियो पे, टीवी पे, अपने फोन पे, अपनी गाड़ी में कहीं भी जाएगा म्यूजिक सुनेगा, कोई काम करेगा, आदमी आएगा थकेगा वो म्यूजिक सुनेगा, उसको एक अलग ही एक फील होता है, अच्छा फील होता है उसे।
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. A big round of applause, please, everyone, for the lovely choir. With that, we'll just slip into a short break and return with a lot more. To stay with us.
With disability, and there I head innovation, because people with disabilities needs assistive solutions day in and day out, and to make the life simpler, easier, we try to identify solutions not only from the very high priceful tech companies or startups, but also from the grassroots. So that's the work in a nutshell that I do now. Yeah, Gargi, as I was telling you,
and about your other, roles that you've had in life, an RJ, the movie you were in, the film, and the books.
Yes, so I've written 2 books actually. The first one was a collection of 40 short stories named as Memoirs of Time. And the second book that I wrote was named as 52 Steps. 52 is a very key number for media. And as a radio jockey, staying in the helm of the show for 52 weeks was very challenging for me, and I could do that. And that's why I named that book as 52 Steps. In there I have written my radio experiences. The acting, yes, the One Little Finger had been a dream for me. Rupam Sharma, the director, has chosen me for lead character, and therefore I won an award also as a best actor.
Wonderful. Now this initiative, Samarth by Hyundai, it's very, very important. We want to draw attention and to people with disabilities, how we need to make work and corporates more inclusive and including them in their in their plans. And you had to shift. Den is one of the few people maybe only one I've heard of, who moved from his hometown to a different city, and this was mainly because of work.
Yeah, this was because of livelihood, because just to give a small bit of information to all of us, that is, if Gargi, you need 100 rupees for your survival, daily survival, if people with 1 or 2 disabilities having them, they would need 111 rupees, and people with severe disabilities like me will need 124 rupees for survival. So I needed to earn that 24 rupees extra, and that's why I had to leave my city and switch to a new city when I was 39.
And about your organization, if you could share how have they made it more comfortable for you to work there?
I have worked in several other organizations, including media, and I would say that Enable India is the most inclusive organization that I have ever worked in. The nooks of inclusion not only lies in people with visible disability, also it lies in understanding the needs of people with invisible disability, and that kind of discussion is just been initiated. And also there is a $13 trillion economy related to disability in the world, which is to be explored. And Enable India has coined the phrase of purple economy, though now United Nations has taken purple economy as something else, but quite a few years back this purple economy was something that we coined, and purple economy has the potential of generating 100 million jobs, and it has a total value of $13 trillion.
Wonderful. And we hear a lot of talk about developing to developed nation. India is striving to be a developed nation, and this is something we can't do without including everybody in that development. What has the government done recently that certain steps that you appreciate?
Yeah. So some of us would say that glass is half empty. Some of us would say that glass is half filled. I am one of those who would always say that glass is half filled, because in the last 4 decades since I was born, I have seen India being transformed. So India has been transformed for betterment. Yes, change is an evolutionary process, and we cannot ask for change overnight. It has to be coming slowly. So primarily the position of ignorance was there in 1990s. Then some visible factors came in, and some of the people with disabilities got visibility in 1990s. Then in the new millennium, we transformed into a new world where we thought of inclusion for the first time. Then UNCRPD happened. Then India was a signatory to UNCRPD. Due to that, India developed the law, draft law,
yes,
which was passed in 2016. And in last quite a few years, India has really worked to make inclusion possible, because by working in the grassroots, I have learned that grassroots organizations are the most powerful places that our ecosystem has, and we need to make them sustainable. And by making them sustainable, we need to work along with them.
Right, absolutely. And so what are the things that you'd like to see done immediately? What are those 3 things that the government could do right now? And there's also this urban-rural divide. While a lot of these efforts create a lot of awareness in our cities, in rural India there's still, I think, a dire need to do a lot more.
Actually, I did a small bit of research, and in India, I have divided India into 4 segments.
4 segments, okay.
So southern part of India is the most disability-friendly part of India. Then coming to the western part of India, the second most empathetic place that India can have.
And you actually shifted from western India to South India.
Yep.
For a better work.
And I am a traveler, so I have traveled throughout India almost to 26 states. So by virtue of that, I can tell these things, and my research also follows with that. So then with Western India is the second most best place to live for people with disabilities. Then comes northern part of India. Much to be done in the east and the northeastern part of India, because that is the most unexplored part of India, not only the northeast but the east also.
So as you can see, daily commuting hassles, difficulty accessing office buildings or educational institutions, lack of accessible toilets or lack of study materials in Braille, these are all reasons for people with disabilities opting out of opportunities that should be equally available to all citizens. We don't realize it, but there is a larger cost we're paying for this exclusion, as Den just explained here. To tell us more about this, we'd now like to invite up on stage Ashwini Angadi, founder and trustee, Ashwini Angadi Trust, Bilaku Academy, and Arman Ali, executive director, National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People. All right, so I think we can get started. As I said, Den is my co-anchor, so Den, I'd like you to begin this discussion.
I'll just start with Arman. Arman, in last 20 years, what has been the thing that you saw unexpectedly change in a positive manner? And in last 20 years, one thing that you thought it would change, but it didn't change.
Thank you, Dan. I think in the last 2 decades, what has changed and which is very encouraging is a lot of young people with disabilities have come forward. They are able to articulate their thoughts, they are able to fight for their right. They do not need any medium. And also in the last 1 decade, I would say, the disability discourse has not remained in metro cities like Delhi or Bombay and so on. I think young people with disabilities have started to take up issues at the very basic district or the village level. What has failed us is education, employment and accessibility. There is a lot of noise around disability. You find disability to be mentioned in every document that you refer to, whether it is, we talk about a film or you talk about anything which is to do with government or private sector, but it remains an afterthought. It remains to answer the basic fundamental right like education for all, employment and accessibility, the freedom to move from one place to another. I think it has not worked.
Thank you, Arman. Ms. Angadi, taking context from Arman, just wanted to know that the education dropout for people with disabilities as a whole, what do you think the main reason behind it?
Yeah, the main issue that we are facing in education is mainly lack of accessing technology. So even though we have various types of technology, we are not utilizing it properly and we are not making children aware of those technology. That's the main issue. And see, I am also running a trust which is mostly, most of our trust runs with inclusion. That means I have both visually impaired and non-visually impaired students. They stay together, study together, they fight together, they do everything together. So I encourage our students with vision impairment to go to regular schools. So they actually, in the beginning, they did not take our students, but I convinced them a lot and I spoke about the laws and rights. So now they are so close to our students. So the main reason is, first we should make our education system and education institution teachers to be aware of visually impaired or else the children with disabilities and whatever the rights and laws and what are the technology they are utilizing it and everything.
Right, and Ashwini, if you just share with us your story as well, because with your family and the support you received, you were educated, and now it's amazing that you're doing so much to help other children and ensure that they have those skills to deal with life and get employment.
Of course, I am from a rural part of Karnataka, so I also born with I always a great gift of God, that's vision impairment. So I studied, I went to a school called Shri Maharshi Academy for the Blind. It is a special school for visually impaired students. So then actually my dream was to become a doctor, but I could not take science even though I had a dream of becoming a doctor. Then I had to take arts. Then I started advocating for people with disabilities. I joined Leonard Cheshire Disabilities as a disabled advocate. And I did so much of, I traveled to so many like states like Delhi, Ranchi, Bhopal, Mumbai. And I could solve so many problems like accessibility, education problem, and like so women, there are many issues faced by women. So those problems are being solved under my leadership, and I used to lead I was a leader of 114 youth. So they are all supported me with making solving a problems faced by women and children with disabilities.
What are some of the things, like 3 things that you think could be immediately done by the government? Also earlier, Dan was talking about how the East, he feels a lot more needs to be done there. South India, he says, is much better for people with disabilities.
See, we have a lesson called political science. We have a subject called political science. We study like Indian constitutional rights and everything. So, along with that Indian constitutional rights, the UNCRPD and PWD Act and every disability related laws should be studied by our students. So then only our disabled are seen in an empathetic way. Otherwise, what happens is we are capable of doing everything. We will be seen in a sympathetic way. Let me give an example. What is sympathetic feeling towards persons with disability. See, when I was just crossing the road, some girl came to me and she helped me to cross the road, and she took a pic with me. And when I went home and I saw her on Facebook with the write-up, I did a great job because I helped her to cross the road. So this is a sympathetic feeling. So if a person with able body, if any person with able body asked any help, will you be taking their pic or putting a Facebook, writing in a Facebook? No, because you don't think it as a help or whatever. But if you help a person with disabilities, you think you have done a great job or whatever. So this is a difference between empathetic and sympathetic. So if our disabled persons should be in an empathetic way, then we should be included in our syllabus. There are many community-based services are also included in schools, like community project-related services are also been included. The same way, the disabled rights and laws should be also included, so that will be the awareness will be built.
To make society more aware and inclusive.
Yeah.
Yes, Dan.
Aman, just to take the question, 2 things that I would like to tell you. First, I would like to tell the language that needs to be propagated on disability. So we all see that people with special needs, people with other things are being referred as people with disabilities. Why and what is the correct language to be used when interacting to people with disabilities? Could you shed some light on that?
We also want to talk about the issues of employment and how we've talked about education, but also employment and what we would like to see corporates and how they should do more in the workplace.
A lot of our energy goes on getting your terminologies right. Okay, and there's no harm if calling a person who's a wheelchair user a person who's a wheelchair user. You're a gentleman on a wheelchair or a lady on a wheelchair. Then calling that person as specially abled and exceptionally abled and so on, taking away the reality from them. If you look at the terminology like Harijan hasn't solved problems of people who are called Harijan. We still have people who die in our country for manual expense. Now the thing is that in last 75 years of independence of our country, have we ever seen one campaign which is talking about people with disability? One campaign which is talking about a lifespan approach on disability? You see the school chale hum, like the education for all, you see Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, you see Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. These are all very important. You know, you saw campaigns on domestic violence, you saw campaigns on LGBTQ and so on. But AIDS, HIV/AIDS, pollution, climate. But have we ever seen anything on disability? Can you put one person on a wheelchair when there's an election making it inclusive? Can you put one person on a wheelchair in any campaign that you have? You don't know what are the needs of disabled people. The needs of disabled people are the same as anybody else in this room. Everybody needs education, everybody needs employment, everybody needs housing, shelter.
So I have to say, at NDTV we have done several, programs and we've covered this issue quite extensively over my career of 20 years, which is why this partnership I think works so well.
My deep appreciation for all that, and even Samarth I think is fantastic. But disability is a state subject, okay, and disability needs investment. And and when there's awareness, like Madam is saying, like Dan is saying, that if you include disability in everything that you do, it only makes you a better facility. And the law is very clear, and for, again, what like Ma'am was saying, when you look at disability, you think of disability as a welfare and a charity and a to do, but that's not the case. Then talked about cost of disability. What is the cost of disability of a person with disability in this country? Despite you paying tax, what is that you get? You're not able to use public transport. You're not able to use any public building, any public places, any product or services in this country. Is it made keeping in mind the need of disabled people? No. So, and there's a law for all this. It's not something that I woke up this morning and prepared to say this here. It's part of the law which is passed by the parliament of this country, and any product and services has to be disabled friendly, and there is a need to be more programs like this, Samarth and NDTV's initiative to create more awareness about disabled people. And it's a common sense. India is the most populous country in the world. It will also have the highest number of disabled people in this world. And who should we be then?
All right, here I'd like to tell you a bit more about Samarth by Hyundai and why it's not one of those, flash in the pan initiatives. It is a prolonged initiative, and the eventual aim of Samarth by Hyundai is to effect change. We don't want this just to be a conversation that ends today. We need this to be a movement, as we've been hearing from all our panelists today, that looks for barriers to accessibility, inclusivity, physical or otherwise. It makes us all think about how we can remove them. Action with accountability, that's the idea behind this initiative. But where are these barriers to be found? How can they be removed? And who is responsible for their removal? To answer these questions, Samarth by Hyundai is also conducting an annual survey to assess how accessible public places are, how aware and inclusive the citizens are. So if you could tell us then where are these places and where are we going to do these surveys?
Yes, Hyundai has chosen 20 cities, and the span that ranges is Delhi NCR, Maharashtra, West Bengal, Kerala, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh.
That's right, so 20 cities across 6 states. Now the findings of this survey will become part of a white paper. Every year thereafter, for 3 years, we'll revisit those spots to see how they have changed to become more accessible and convenient for those with disabilities. The survey will also take attitudes, perceptions and mindsets into account to put together a complete picture of how inclusive the city is for those with disabilities. And clearly through all these conversations we're having today, there's a lot that needs to be done.
Actually, Samarth by Hyundai is one of the most important programs that I have attended, because this program has been co-created with people with disabilities. I have got into calls, and that's made some difference. And when you are taking a path of co-creation, it's amazing when you are co-creating with people with disabilities. Any program, that is something that we all would take forward. Thank you for that. Gargi, would you like to take forward?
Right. Again, about employability, if I can ask you, Arman, that's one thing we want to just come back to. Three things that need to be done when we talk about, more braille signages or elevators, voice-activated elevators, more ramps. That clearly is something that we need to have more of in our cities, in rural parts. What one of the panelists said earlier is that all of us will have some kind of disability later in life, and so we all need to think about that right now as well for everyone.
One thing, Gargi, I must tell you, disability is not something we should all be scared of. It's not something we should all be afraid of. It's part of life. It's one of the human diversities. Now, for employment, I think it's very important that we have a compliance. The law is very clear. The law says that every establishment with more than 20 employees must have an equal opportunity policy registered at their state with the Commissioner for Disabilities Office. So equal opportunities, like in every, how many establishments can you think of would have more than 20 employees? I think millions of them. And migration is a huge problem for people with disability. One find it very difficult to migrate from one state to another, one district to another, one city to another. So I think that's one. Looking at self-employment, where there is a focus on people with disability, how they can become entrepreneurs with disability. How can you create an ecosystem which supports that?
Right. And I'm sorry to interrupt you there. We're now also joined by UP's Deputy Chief Minister Brajesh Pathak. UP is, of course, one of India's largest states with the largest population, so a lot of work there. Thank you so much हमारे से जुड़ने के लिए इस मुहिम में. ब्रजेश पाठक जी, अगर आप बता सकते हैं, अगर आप बता सकते हैं उत्तर प्रदेश में क्या किया जा रहा है विकलांग के लिए.
नमस्कार, बहुत बहुत आभार आपका. आपने बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण सब्जेक्ट पर आज डिस्कशन रखा है. दिव्यांगजन हमारी सरकार के लिए प्राथमिकता की सूची में है. उनके लिए उच्च कोटि की चिकित्सा व्यवस्था उपलब्ध हो, उनको रहने खाने में उनके जीवन स्तर को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए सरकार लगातार काम कर रही है. उनके शिक्षा के लिए भी अच्छे इंतजाम किए जा रहे हैं. हमारे उत्तर प्रदेश में दिव्यांगजन विश्वविद्यालय सरकारी पहले से एक चल रहा है. इसके अलावा भी हाल ही में हमारे पास जगत गुरु श्री रामभद्राचार्य जी के नाम से जो चित्रकूट में एक विश्वविद्यालय केवल दिव्यांगजनों के लिए था, उसको भी सरकार ने अपने अधिपत्य में लेते हुए व्यवस्थित ढंग से उनको उच्च कोटि की शिक्षा देने के लिए 2 विश्वविद्यालय उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार संचालित करने का काम कर रही है. चिकित्सा व्यवस्था में उन्हें प्राथमिकता मिले, इसके लिए सभी चिकित्सालयों में उनके लिए अलग से काउंटर स्थापित किए गए हैं और उनको स्वास्थ्य लाभ मिलने में प्राथमिकता पर हमने रखा. यदि किसी भी चिकित्सालय में कोई दिव्यांगजन स्वास्थ्य लाभ के लिए जाता है, दवाई के लिए जाता है, तो उसे प्राथमिकता पर हम देखते हैं. इसके अलावा भर्ती की प्रक्रिया भी उनके लिए सरल की है. सभी अस्पतालों में हमने रैंप बनाए हैं जिसे व्हील चेयर के माध्यम से वो पहुंच सके. इसके अलावा समय समय पर हमारा दिव्यांगजन विभाग अभियान चला करके सभी ऐसे दिव्यांगजनों को जो उनके सहायतार्थ उपकरण हैं, चाहे उनको ट्राईसाइकिल देना हो, चाहे मोटराइज साइकिल देना हो, चाहे उन्हें बैसाखी देना हो, सुनने के लिए अच्छी मशीन देना हो, या अन्य जो उपकरण हैं उनको लगातार, चाहे हमारे जो दिव्यांगजन हैं जिनको दृष्टि से दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है, दृष्टिविहीन है, उनके लिए स्टिक भी हम लोग प्रदान लगातार करते हैं. यह हमारी सरकार के प्राथमिकता के एजेंडे में है. और माननीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने सबसे बड़ी बात यह की कि पूरे विभाग के नाम को बदलने का काम किया. हम सब जानते हैं कि माननीय मोदी जी की सोच वहां तक है जहां तक कोई सोच नहीं सकता. पहले लोग इस विभाग को दूसरे नाम से जाता था. लोग इस प्रकार के नाम लेते थे विकलांग जैसे कोई अभिशाप हो, लेकिन माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने दिव्यांगजन नाम दिया है. दिव्यांगजन का मतलब उनके पास विशेष रूप से कुछ ऐसा ईश्वर ने प्रदत्त किया है जो अन्य लोगों में नहीं है. तो इस प्रकार के वातावरण क्रिएट उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार ने किया है कि दिव्यांगजन सुव्यवस्थित ढंग से जिंदगी अपनी व्यतीत करें और उनको जीवन के हर पहलू में आगे बढ़ने का अवसर मिले.
जी पाठक जी, समर्थ बाय हंडे का जो इनिशिएटिव है, इसका आप आगे क्या देखते हैं? आप क्या चाहते हैं कि ये इनिशिएटिव करें?
लगातार इस प्रकार के जो इनिशिएटिव हैं इनको हम स्वागत करते हैं. और विभिन्न जो NGOs हैं, आपका चैनल भी लगातार, NDTV भी लगातार इस प्रकार के कार्यक्रम चलाता रहता है, चाहे स्वच्छ हवा हो, स्वच्छ पानी हो. अब दिव्यांगजनों की मुहिम लेकर के हम सब आए हैं. मैं ऐसे सभी कार्यक्रमों का स्वागत करता हूं और मैं इस बात का भरोसा एनडीटीवी के माध्यम से सभी लोगों को दिलाता हूं कि उत्तर प्रदेश में हर स्थिति में हम दिव्यांगजनों के जीवन स्तर को ऊपर उठाने के लिए काम करेंगे और उनके साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर खड़े होंगे।
जी, और एक्सेसिबिलिटी की बहुत बात हो रही थी यहाँ पर, काफ़ी हमारे जो पैनलिस्ट आए हैं वो बात कर रहे हैं कि उनको जो मूवमेंट में काफ़ी दिक्कतें होती हैं दिव्यांग लोगों के लिए, इसके बारे में आप उत्तर प्रदेश में क्या करेंगे?
देखिए, दिव्यांगजनों को मूवमेंट में दिक्कत ना आए इसके लिए सभी हमारे जो स्थानीय परिवहन की व्यवस्थाएं, चाहे सिटी बसेज हो चाहे मेट्रो हो, उसमें रैंप बनाए गए हैं, लो फ्लोर की बसें चलाई गई हैं। सिटी बसेज में दिव्यांगजन अपनी ट्राईसाइकिल सहित यात्रा कर सके उसके लिए बस के में प्रॉपर ढंग से रैंप बना करके चढ़ने की व्यवस्था है। इसके अलावा उनको मोटराइज साइकिल भी हम देते हैं। अब तो और भी अच्छा हो गया, पर्यावरण की दृष्टि से हम उन्हें सोलर साइकिल भी दे रहे हैं जो बैटरी चालित है, वो भी उन्हें प्रदान कर रहे हैं। और कहीं भी कोई अगर ऐसा हमारे जो एनजीओज हैं या आपके माध्यम से किसी प्लेटफॉर्म पर इस प्रकार की सूचना प्राप्त होती है कि दिव्यांगजनों को कहीं भी कोई आवश्यकता है तो हमारी सरकार प्रतिबद्धता के साथ सभी के साथ खड़ी है।
जी, ब्रजेश पाठक जी, हमसे बात करने के लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
बहुत बहुत आभार आपका, धन्यवाद। आपने अच्छे विषय पर हमें अपने साथ जोड़ा है, मैं इसके लिए आपका हृदय से आभार प्रकट करता हूँ।
जी, thank you, and thank you so much to my panelists here, and thank you for joining us. We'll slip into a short break now. Joining us now on stage is Smriti Irani, Minister of Women and Child Development in the Government of India. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking time out and coming for this very special initiative. And this is Jen, my co-anchor for this session. We wanted to start by asking you about what is it that the government is doing currently. We were talking about employment opportunities for those with disabilities, from education to corporates to providing that actual employment. But what is the government doing to help skill people?
We already have, through the various ministries of the Government of India, skilled close to 1,94,000 people who have disabilities, or as the Prime Minister says, Divyang. But I think that we need to dial back a little, Gargi. Where do you first identify an individual or a child who has a challenge? One of the greatest, I think, challenges for a family is to come to terms with the fact that this is a child that needs support, this is a child with potential, and this is a child who, if you give the support that the child so deserves, can go possibly a longer way than you could possibly ever have gone. So I think, and I was just discussing with Sanjay ji, we in the Ministry of Women and Child Development, through close to 14 lakh Anganwadis, in the first week of December now, are launching one of the largest campaigns in the country, where children under the age of 6, in collaboration with chief medical officers, in collaboration with our colleagues in the Ministry of Social Justice, we will help identify children who are in need of that support, children who are in need of identification if they have some kind of a challenge or if they have some kind of a disability. And these are children who are currently 7.5 crores in numbers within our Anganwadi systems already. Now, with the early identification, there is a multiplier effect. One, there is an early understanding in collaboration with the medical community, with the local community, with the Anganwadi Asha workers, and with parents as to what is the challenge that the child faces, what is the support system that is currently available, what is the alternative to, let's say, early childhood education that the child deserves, and what is the long-term need of the child from an academic point of view. For instance, today out of the 11 lakh plus government aided schools across the country, or government schools, already in terms of accessibility, there has been infrastructure provided to close to 8,33,000 schools, which means we will also help identify the nearest school for a community where a child with disability needs that additional support or can help gain access. It'll also help us identify Anganwadi centers which need additional infrastructural support vis-a-vis children that have to be catered to with regards to disability. And I think that much has been spoken today with regards to
I think it's wonderful that you're going through the Anganwadis, because earlier we were talking about, we hear a lot in urban India, but in rural India there's a lot of need, and as you said, to identify children, to encourage teachers and parents as well.
I think with identification also comes this whole social output, that this is not a child who has to face challenges alone. This is a child where communities need to come together in support of such a family, and I think that is what will help resonate. That is my belief when we begin this particular collaboration across all states. We've already onboarded all state governments. We've already onboarded across 18 ministries, our colleagues and partners, and stakeholders like UNICEF are already in support of this venture of ours.
Madam Minister, what I have seen, still there is immense amount of stigma related to disability. And in that part, to remove the stigma, what kind of awareness initiatives can be ideated or initiated from your department, ma'am?
I think that the outreach with regards to Anganwadis and the systemic intervention to help identify disabilities amongst children is one such tool to ensure that the stigmatization around the issue can be reduced. I also believe that there is a need to tell the story of more and more individuals who have received credit support to grow their businesses. Today, close to 1,000 crores by the Government of India and the National Corporation has been given to people who wanted to start small businesses. Close to 1,43,000 individuals with disabilities, what, as I said, we call Divyang, they have not only taken that credit, but they have helped better their livelihoods, their small and medium enterprises, of which research now shows that 89% of those who took this credit for their businesses have now improved not only their monthly takeaway financially, but also substantially improved their own way of living. So I think the fact that you've had an economic measure as to when you have access to, let's say, credit, what is the equivalent impact on the individual or the family's life. I think those stories need to be told even more, because you may have had the Paralympics and how they did so well in the medal tally. That has made national headlines, but the headlines also need to now tell stories about those individuals who've had disabilities but have done stupendously well financially.
Absolutely, ma'am. When we talk about disability and people with disability, we get lots of questions about employment. Generation of employment in the grassroots area is a challenge. So what can be expected in the upcoming years of the vision that we have, our government has, of becoming the third largest economy in the world?
So I think that one of the factors that can help enhance employability is the access to education and skill. So when I talk about the Anganwadi intervention, one needs to recognize that if you have this kind of an intervention early in life, you are psychologically preparing the individual child and the family unit to succeed. That this cannot be looked upon as an impediment to success, but this is a challenge that can be overcome with additional support academically, infrastructurally. I think there has to be a psychological conversation around the issue of disability at the grassroots. Once you provide access to educational institutions, as I have said to Gargi, that out of the 11 lakh schools today, we have access created in 8,33,000 schools. But apart from that, where are you now creating access? There are 35 international airports that now have access, 55 domestic airports that have access. So if you create access in more and more streams of mobility, then you create more opportunity. If in an age where AI is being leveraged or instrumentality becomes the fulcrum of manufacturing, how much of those who have a disability or those who are Divyang can be encouraged to work with machines and machine tools? And not only work with machine tools, there is an elaborate industry that can be leveraged with regards to production of machine tools within our country. So I think that there is a whole economy and an ecosystem that can be serviced, and those are the employment opportunities that you've been talking about.
Right, absolutely. Access to education, and as you said, accessibility for movement around our cities and various parts of the country. If you could share with us what the government is doing and what in the ministries as well. We heard earlier of a complaint about going to a government department, how, where the office was on the first floor, there was no elevator available. These kind of issues is something we should not be, coming across.
Today accessed over 1,011 government buildings in terms of accessibility. But do recognize that we are in a structure where the center and the state both collaborate on issues of accessibility. And one needs to also recognize that the issue around providing better infrastructure around disability was not a conversation on main stages such as this, let's say 12 years ago or 10 years ago. So I think more of the conversations that happen around mobility, about infrastructure, about skilling, about financing manufactural needs of people with disabilities, I think that's where there will be more and more awareness and a need. Why only from individuals who have a disability? Why not by all citizens concerned? So why only look at access to, let's say, a government building? Why not all housing societies? Why not all so-called gated communities? Why not all village infrastructure? So I think the sky is the limit in terms of how to create more and more opportunity. And do remember, we have not reached the utopian state where our population is not set to grow beyond what it is today. You will have now more and more centers which are not completely urban in nature, which are not completely rural in nature, which are right in the middle called urban. How many of those centers now have infrastructure to take a whole force of individuals that are thronging? And how many such individuals or institutions now have created that accessibility?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Minister, for talking to us and sharing so much about what the government is planning. And, this initiatives like this need support from ministers like you and more awareness to be created around this.
Thank you for having this conversation. Much needed.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Unsu Kim, MD and CEO, Hyundai Motor India, and Mr. Tarun Garg, COO, Hyundai Motor India, to present a small memento to Ms. Irani.
Welcome back to this very special initiative and coverage today of the launch of Samarth by Hyundai. And who better to talk to us about it than the Minister for Social Justice and Empowerment, Dr. Virendra Kumar.
तो आपको बताऊं दर्शकों, यहाँ पर डॉक्टर वीरेंद्र कुमार अपनी सादगी के लिए जाने जाते हैं। सामाजिक न्याय और अधिकारिता मंत्री हैं ये, सोशल जस्टिस एंड एम्पावरमेंट। तो आज का जो विषय है जिस पे हम चर्चा कर रहे हैं, उसके लिए शायद सबसे महत्वपूर्ण व्यक्ति आप यहाँ पर मौजूद हैं सर। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद समय निकालने के लिए अपने इस बिजी शेड्यूल में। आपका क्या नज़रिया है, आपका जो मंत्रालय है किस ओर किस तरह से आगे बढ़ रहा है कि इनके जीवन को सुगम बनाया जाए?
हमारा मंत्रालय जो अपने देश की करुणा, मानवता, सहानुभूति, जो हमारे भारतीयता के भरे हुए सिद्धांत हैं, उन सिद्धांतों को पूरी तरह से आत्मसात करता हुआ दिव्यांगजन हमारे समाज के महत्वपूर्ण अंग हैं। और देश के प्रधानमंत्री आदरणीय नरेंद्र मोदी जी के द्वारा पहले इनको तरह तरह के शब्दों से संबोधित किया जाता था, लेकिन उन्होंने जो दिव्यांगता शब्द से संबोधन दिया, उससे मैंने देखा कि मैं देश भर में अनेक स्थानों पर जाता हूँ, दिव्यांगजनों के बीच में जाता हूँ, उनको जो आत्मिक प्रसन्नता का भावना उनके अंदर जो आई, उसको शब्दों में व्यक्त नहीं किया जा सकता। उनको ये लगता है कि हमारा कोई अपना है जिन्होंने हमको हमारी भावनाओं को समझने का, हमारी भावनाओं को स्पर्श करने की पहल की है। और आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने दिव्यांगजनों के लिए दिव्यांगता अधिकार अधिनियम 2016, इसमें दिव्यांगजनों के लिए जो सरकारी नौकरियों में आरक्षण है, बहुत सारे बदलाव किए गए। तो उसमें 3% से बढ़ाकर 4% किया गया। शासकीय मान्यता प्राप्त जो स्कूल हैं उसमें भी आरक्षण 3% से बढ़ाकर 5% किया गया। जो दिव्यांगता की श्रेणियां थीं, 7 श्रेणियां, उन 7 श्रेणियों को बढ़ाकर 21 किया गया। यानी अब 21 तरह की श्रेणियों को उसमें दिव्यांगता में शामिल किया गया, जिससे बड़ी मात्रा में दिव्यांगजनों को शासन की योजनाओं का लाभ मिल रहा है, वो आगे बढ़ रहे हैं।
जो आपने योजनाओं की बात की, अगर कुछ साझा करना चाहें, क्योंकि यहाँ पर हम जिस तरह से अगर पूछना चाहें, 3 कदम अगर आप चाहें बताना चाहें कि जिस ओर आप आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और जो लोग जागरूक हों समाज, क्योंकि जब आप नेतागण बोलते हैं तो लोग सोचते हैं, समझते हैं और उस पर आगे बढ़ते हैं।
दिव्यांगजनों के जीवन में उनके एक तो शैक्षणिक क्षेत्र, सार्वभौमिक सुगम्यता, समावेशी शिक्षा और प्रशिक्षित पुनर्वास कर्मी। नई शिक्षा नीति के माध्यम से इस दिशा में काफ़ी सार्थक पहल प्रारंभ की गई है और कक्षा 1 से लेकर 6वीं कक्षा तक की पुस्तकों का भारतीय सांकेतिक भाषा में उसका रूपांतरण किया गया। इसके साथ ही साथ ब्रेल प्रेस की स्थापना की गई। इस ब्रेल प्रेस की स्थापना से जो हमारे दृष्टिबाधित छात्र हैं, ऐसे दृष्टिबाधित छात्रों को ब्रेल लिपि के माध्यम से अपने शिक्षा के अवसरों को आगे बढ़ाने का एक अच्छा अवसर उनको प्राप्त हो रहा है। और आरसीआई के माध्यम से हम पुनर्वास कर्मियों को प्रशिक्षित करके ताकि उनके जीवन में सुगमता लाने के प्रयासों को और भी गतिशीलता के साथ में कैसे आगे बढ़ाया जा सकता है। साथ ही साथ हमारी जो योजना है कि शिक्षा के साथ ही साथ दिव्यांगजनों को कौशल विकास के ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम के साथ में जोड़ करके उनको एक और जहां शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में आगे बढ़ाया जाए, वहीं शिक्षा के साथ ही साथ स्किल ट्रेनिंग के प्रोग्राम के साथ में जोड़ करके उनके अंदर एक स्वावलंबन का भाव उनके अंदर लाने के लिए उस दिशा में भी हम सार्थकता के साथ में कदम आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं। और एक नई तरह की शुरुआत और इसके साथ जोड़कर की गई है दिव्य कला मेला। दिव्य कला मेले में अभी तक हमारे 9 मेले हमारे हो चुके हैं। इन दिव्य कला मेलों में हमारे दिव्यांगजन देश के अलग अलग हिस्सों में अलग अलग तरह की चीज़ों को बनाते हैं, लेकिन वो अपने गांव में या शहर के हिस्सों में एक स्थान पर बैठे रहते थे। उनके द्वारा निर्मित वस्तुओं को विक्रय के लिए प्लेटफार्म नहीं मिल पाता था। ये दिव्य कला मेले के माध्यम से दिव्यांगजनों के द्वारा निर्मित वस्तुओं को विक्रय के लिए एक सशक्त प्लेटफार्म उपलब्ध हो रहा है। वहीं इसको ई-कॉमर्स के साथ में भी जोड़ा जा रहा है। तो शासन के प्रयासों से इस सुगम्यता के क्षेत्र में जो कदम आगे बढ़ाए गए हैं, सुगम्य भारत अभियान, बाधा रहित भारत।
तो डॉक्टर कुमार, these are very important initiatives, but जैसे आज जो disability right advocates आए थे, they said what they want, the main thing is inclusivity और accessibility. जैसे रेलवे स्टेशन पे, जैसे एयरपोर्ट्स, जैसे if they want to go and see a movie, how, you know, accessibility to cinema halls, simple things like accessible public toilets. How can the government in making even monuments accessible to people who are disabled?
आपने बहुत अच्छी बात पूछी है। इसके लिए सुगम्य भारत अभियान को जो काफी सक्षमता के साथ में आगे बढ़ाया जा रहा है, केंद्र और राज्य सरकार के लगभग 1700 भवनों को पूरी तरह से सुगम्य बनाया गया है। 35 अंतर्राष्ट्रीय हवाई अड्डों को सुगम्य बनाया गया है। 55 घरेलू हवाई अड्डों को सुगम्य बनाया गया है। 709 रेलवे स्टेशन उनको सुगम्य बनाया गया है। अब वो सुगम्य उनके चलिए, चाहे वो शौचालय की बात हो, रैंप की बात हो, हैंडल्स की बात हो, जब वो प्लेटफार्म पर या फ्लाईओवर पर चलते हैं तो उनको चलने के लिए अलग से टाइल्स लगाकर, ताकि उन पर चलकर वो जो है ना, चलते हुए आसानी से उनको पहचान हो जाती है कि हमको कहाँ से सीधे जाना है, कहाँ से हमको उतरना है। ऐसे बहुत सारे प्रयास सुगम्य भारत अभियान के अंतर्गत किए गए। लगभग 42,000 बसों को आंशिक रूप से और 8,000 बसों को पूर्णतः सुगम्य बनाया गया है। केंद्र और राज्य की लगभग 700 वेबसाइट को भी सुगम्य बनाया गया है
जी।
और सुगम्यता के क्षेत्र में हम काफ़ी सक्षमता के साथ में क्षेत्र में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, बल्कि बहुत सारे हमारे दिव्यांगजनों का इस क्षेत्र में काफ़ी अच्छा सहयोग भी मिल रहा है।
ये इनिशिएटिव, ये पहल जो हम कर रहे हैं, इसमें एक तथ्य ये भी सामने आया कि उसको जो भी तमाम स्कीम्स हैं, योजनाएं, उनको मॉनिटर किया जाए। आप का मंत्रालय या आप किस तरह से आंकलन करते हैं कि ज़मीन पर ये स्थितियाँ या योजनाएं पहुंच रही हैं? क्योंकि एक आंकड़ा ये आया कि 40% हमारे जो दिव्यांग या ऐसे वर्ग के हमारे लोग हैं, उनके पास रोज़गार के साधन नहीं है। तो किस तरह से आप मॉनिटर करते हैं? क्या आपका आंकलन रहता है?
हम इसके लिए राज्य स्तर पर, जिला स्तर पर और राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर हमारी एक और कार्यशालाओं का आयोजन करते हैं, सेमिनार का भी आयोजन करते हैं और जागरूकता सृजन के भी कार्यक्रमों का आयोजन किया जाता है, जिससे कि दिव्यांगजनों को एक और तो शासन की योजनाओं की जानकारी मिल सके, उन योजनाओं को वो लाभ उठा सकें और साथ ही साथ बाकी दिव्यांगजनों को भी उन योजनाओं के साथ में जोड़कर अपने जीवन में आगे बढ़ने के लिए मार्गदर्शन करें। तो ये केवल केंद्र सरकार और राज्य सरकार से अकेले नहीं, केंद्र सरकार और राज्य सरकार के साथ ही साथ समाज सेवी संगठनों, एनजीओ और जो हमारे प्रतिष्ठित व्यावसायिक प्रतिष्ठान हैं, ऐसे प्रतिष्ठित व्यावसायिक संस्थानों का भी सहयोग इसमें नितांत आवश्यक है। सभी मिलकर जब कदम से कदम मिलाकर आगे बढ़ेंगे तो दिव्यांगजनों के जीवन में न केवल सुगम्यता आएगी, वो आर्थिक रूप से स्वावलंबी बनेंगे, बल्कि जो भारत को विकसित राष्ट्र बनाने का सपना है, उस भारत को विकसित राष्ट्र बनाने के सपने में सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास और उसमें सभी का सामूहिक प्रयास, ये उसमें दिव्यांगजनों का भी सामूहिक प्रयास उसमें जुड़ सके।
हमारा जो आज का इनिशिएटिव पहले, इसमें जो टैगलाइन है वो ये है, मंजिल उनकी साथ हमारा। और हंडे द्वारा जो ये समर्थ का कार्यक्रम इसको हम जब कर रहे हैं, इसमें एक ये महत्वपूर्ण पहलू ये भी है कि हम समाज को जोड़ें। लेकिन आप हमारे नेतागण हैं, जब नेतागण कुछ कहते हैं तो लोग सुनते भी हैं। आप अगर वापस जाएंगे अपने मंत्रालय में, 3 क्या चीज़ें तत्कालिक तौर पर करना चाहेंगे जिससे ये इनिशिएटिव आगे बढ़े, और जो समर्थ के साथ भी आप उनको क्या कहेंगे कि आप क्या होना देना चाहते हैं इस कार्यक्रम द्वारा, इस इनिशिएटिव द्वारा?
समर्थ के द्वारा ये जो कार्यक्रम का आयोजन किया गया है, मैं तो सबसे पहले उनके लिए हृदय से धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ। समाज के ऐसे सबसे संवेदनशील प्रसंगों को स्पर्श करने की जो पहल उनके द्वारा की गई है, यह अपने आप में काफ़ी प्रशंसनीय है। और जैसा कि मैंने आपसे पूर्व में कहा, दिव्यांगजनों के लिए सार्वभौमिक सुगम्यता, समावेशी शिक्षा और प्रशिक्षित पुनर्वास कर्मी, इन तीनों के माध्यम से हम दिव्यांगता के क्षेत्र में दिव्यांगजनों को उनके आर्थिक, सामाजिक, शैक्षणिक सशक्तिकरण की दिशा में काफ़ी सक्षमता के साथ में और इन पहलों को और भी ज़्यादा आगे बढ़ाने का, संकल्पों को सिद्धि तक पहुंचाने की भावना को हम जन जन तक पहुंचाना चाहते हैं, जिसमें समाज का भी सहयोग आवश्यक है, जिसमें केंद्र और राज्य सरकारों के साथ साथ एनजीओ का भी सहयोग आवश्यक है। और आपने इस संवेदनशील मुद्दे के माध्यम से हमारे दिव्यांगजनों के प्रति सरकार तो अपना काम कर रही है, लेकिन इसको ऐसे कार्यक्रम के माध्यम से मैं वास्तव में इसके लिए शब्दों का चयन नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ कि आपने इतने अच्छे विषय का चयन करके समाज के संवेदनशील हमारे भाइयों बहनों के बारे में सोचा और बताया गया कि काफ़ी बड़ी मात्रा में यहाँ पर हमारे दिव्यांग भाई बहन देश भर से आए, उनकी सफलता की सक्सेस स्टोरी भी यहाँ पर रखी गई। मैं तो दिन भर यहाँ नहीं रह पाया, लेकिन एक सफलता के संबंध में आपके सामने कहना चाहता हूँ। एक सत्येंद्र लोहिया नाम का नौजवान है, मध्य प्रदेश का है, ग्वालियर का है, और उसने अभी पिछले दिनों इंग्लिश चैनल को दोनों तरफ से पार किया। दिव्यांग नौजवान ने एक विश्व रिकॉर्ड बनाने का काम किया। ऐसे भी दिव्यांगजनों के बीच में प्रतिभाएं हैं, इन प्रतिभाओं को ढूंढ करके और हमारे दिव्यांगजनों के लिए एक मॉडल के रूप में आगे लाने का काम, कि दिव्यांगजनों के अंदर न प्रतिभा की कमी है, न उनके अंदर परिश्रम की कमी है, न उनके अंदर पुरुषार्थ की कमी है, न उनके अंदर पराक्रम की कमी है। उनकी क्षमताओं को आगे बढ़ाने की जो पहल आपके द्वारा की जा रही है, उसके लिए मैं आप सबका हृदय से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और आभार करना चाहता हूँ।
Dr. Kumar, thank you so much for supporting this initiative. Or they said today कि not just disability, it is a super ability. And I think we've seen that with all the support and the wonderful success stories, that your words will be something which will inspire many. Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're watching the launch of Samarth by Hyundai, a movement for inclusivity, diversity, accessibility. Let's join the conversation once again.
We're now going across to Himachal Pradesh to welcome on the show Chief Minister Sukhvinder Singh Sukhu. Let's go across now to the Chief Minister. Thank you so much for being with us today and joining us on this very, very important initiative. Sir, if you can share with us, अगर आप हमको बता सकते हैं हिमाचल प्रदेश में आप दिव्यांग के लिए क्या कर रहे हैं accessibility increase करने के लिए? जी.
Definitely I am telling you, in हिमाचल प्रदेश में 75,000 जो दिव्यांग है उनको हम पेंशन्स दे रहे हैं और जो उनकी इमोशंस है उसको पहले अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं। उस अंडरस्टैंड करने के बाद जैसे कि बस स्टैंड्स है, प्राइवेट बसेस है या गवर्नमेंट बसेस है, उनके लिए रैंप की सुविधा उपलब्ध करवा रहे हैं। जहाँ रैंप नहीं होता वहाँ रेलिंग के साथ, वहाँ रेलिंग की सपोर्ट से उनको उनके व्हील चेयर के माध्यम से उनको हॉस्पिटल्स में हम सुविधा उपलब्ध करवा रहे हैं। 3300 के करीब हमने स्कूल्स में जो दिव्यांग हैं उनको हमने टॉयलेट्स की सुविधा उपलब्ध करवाई है और जो 117 हमारे गवर्नमेंट अकोमोडेशंस है, गवर्नमेंट अकोमोडेशंस में भी हमने उनको सब प्रकार की सुविधा उपलब्ध करवाई है। तकरीबन 75,000 दिव्यांग हिमाचल प्रदेश में हैं। सबको हम पेंशन देते हैं, उनके हिसाब से उनके लिए पेंशन का कोई क्राइटेरिया नहीं है। उनको अपनी लाइवलीहुड के लिए उनके पेरेंट्स जो उनके ख्याल रखते हैं, उसके अलावा सरकार भी उनको पेंशन की सुविधा उपलब्ध करवाती है। और जो भी कुछ इनके लिए हमें करना होता है उसके लिए स्पेसिफिक बजट रखा होता है। उस बजट के आधार बनाकर हम इनके लिए जो योजनाएं लाते हैं कि कई प्रकार के दिव्यांग हैं, तो उस दृष्टिकोण से हमारी सरकार उनके लिए उस प्रकार से सुविधा उपलब्ध करवाती है। तो मेरा ये मानना है कि हिमाचल प्रदेश में और भी बहुत कुछ करने की ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि ये एक ऐसा वर्ग है जिसकी तरफ ध्यान देने की हम सब लोगों को ज़रूरत है और समय के अनुसार इनको बजट एलोकेशन करने की भी बहुत अधिक ज़रूरत है। तो हमने इसमें इस बार भी हमने अपने बजट में स्पेसिफिक इनके लिए भी रखा है और इनकी जो समस्याएं हैं उसको अंडरस्टैंड करते हैं और उस अंडरस्टैंड करने के बाद उसको दूर करने की हमारी कोशिश हमारी सरकार की रहती है।
सुखू जी, मैं निधि बोल रही हूँ। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद अपना इतना महत्वपूर्ण समय निकालने के लिए। मंजिल उनकी साथ हमारा, ये हमारा उद्देश्य है इस कार्यक्रम का। हंडे द्वारा समर्थ, ये एक पूरी हम पहल कर रहे हैं। एक आंकड़ा जो हमारे देश में आता है कि 75% हमारे देश के जो 5 साल से कम उम्र के बच्चे हैं वो उनको स्कूल में जगह नहीं मिलती। 75% जो दिव्यांग बच्चे हैं, जो विकलांग बच्चे हैं। हिमाचल प्रदेश के स्कूल बहुत अच्छा करते हैं एबल्ड बच्चों के लिए, लेकिन इन बच्चों के लिए क्या विचार, क्या सोच है आपकी?
जो 75% से 5 साल के कम उम्र के बच्चे हैं, पहले तो उनकी स्टडी करनी पड़ती है। हम पहले कोई भी, मैंने डायरेक्शन ये दे रखी है कि जो बच्चे हैं, कई डम एंड डफ है, कोई कई प्रकार के दिव्यांग हैं, तो उनको स्टडी करने के बाद उनके अनुसार, उनके पेरेंट्स की सुविधा के अनुसार फिर टीचर से बात करके हम उनको सुविधा प्रदान करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। कुछ कमियां इसमें हैं, उन कमियों को दूर करना पड़ेगा और ये आने वाले समय में धीरे धीरे दूर होगी। अब दिव्यांग भी कई प्रकार के, उन चीज़ों को हम अंडरस्टैंड कर रहे हैं। अब हमने उसके अंडरस्टैंड करने के बाद एक अलग से विंग बनाया है जो इन समस्याओं का समाधान करेगा। अभी रैंप बनाकर तो इनको चलने की सुविधा की दी गई है, लेकिन उनकी इमोशंस क्या है, किस प्रकार से सोचते, किस प्रकार की एजुकेशन वो लेना चाहते हैं, क्या उनकी सोच है, उसको भी डेवलप करने की ज़रूरत है ताकि वो सेल्फ डिपेंडेंट हो सके। तो उस दृष्टिकोण से भी हमारी सरकार उनके लिए एक नीति लेकर आने वाली है।
बिल्कुल सर, आज एक सुझाव आया हमारे साथ, जो लोग मौजूद थे उनका ये कहना था कि स्कूलों में अगर एक शिक्षक है जो देख नहीं पाते उन छात्रों के लिए है, लेकिन जो सुन नहीं पाते उनका क्या होगा, या जो चल नहीं पाते क्या होगा, या उनको कक्षा में एकदम पीछे बिठाया जाता है। उस लिहाज से आप क्या अपनी सरकार में बदलाव लाना चाहेंगे, या अपने जो शिक्षा का क्षेत्र है स्कूलों को निर्देश देना चाहेंगे जो शिक्षक हैं उनको भी, क्योंकि ऐसे तमाम वाक्य आज लोगों ने बताए हमें कि किस तरह से शिक्षकों का बर्ताव होता है, क्या उसमें बदलाव लाएंगे? आप कुछ निर्देश जारी करेंगे?
नहीं, आपको ये बताना चाहता हूँ, उनके लिए स्पेशल टीचर की रिक्रूटमेंट की है हमने। जो बच्चे हैं उनके स्पेशल टीचर की रिक्रूटमेंट किया, और किसी भी दिव्यांग से मेरा ख्याल है कि हिमाचल प्रदेश में कहीं उन्हें पीछे नहीं बिठाया जाता, उनको अहमियत दी जाती है। और बच्चे भी इतने समझदार है कि जो दिव्यांग होता है उसको पहले आगे रखते हैं, उसके साथ बातचीत करते हैं। ऐसी स्थिति हिमाचल प्रदेश में नहीं है कि जो देख नहीं सकते, जो सुन नहीं सकते, जो बोल नहीं सकते, उनके लिए हमने स्पेशल ट्यूटर रिक्रूट किए हुए हैं। तभी मैंने आपको शुरू में ही कहा कि हम किस प्रकार का दिव्यांग है, उसको किस प्रकार के टीचर की ज़रूरत है, उसके इमोशन क्या सोचते हैं, ये सब चीज़ों को हम अंडरस्टैंड करने के बाद उन्हें सुविधा देते हैं। सरकार के पास उनके लिए पैसे की कोई कमी नहीं है।
अब सर बिल्कुल हम लोग संवेदनशील हो जाएं, ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। 3 कदम जो आप सोच रहे हैं आज इस कार्यक्रम के बाद आप अपने प्रदेश में तुरंत लागू करना चाहेंगे हमारे समाज के इस वर्ग के लिए?
देखिए, कोई भी दिव्यांग जो होता है पहले तो उसके इमोशंस की रिस्पेक्ट करनी पड़ती है। उस इमोशन की रिस्पेक्ट में उसके पेरेंट्स करें, टीचर करें, स्टूडेंट्स करें, या सोसाइटी और करें। उस रिस्पेक्ट को बहुत सम्मान देना चाहिए, पहली बात। दूसरी, उसे अपने सेल्फ डिपेंडेंट करने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए। पर कई जगह दिव्यांग ऐसे हो सकते हैं जो जीवन में कभी सेल्फ डिपेंडेंट नहीं हो सकते। उसके लिए नीति लानी पड़ेगी कि गवर्नमेंट इनको कैसे टेक केयर करेगी, कैसे इनकी केयरिंग करेगी, उस प्रकार से सोचना पड़ेगा। तीसरा, जो जीवन में बनना चाहते हैं, जैसे कोई बहरा है, गूंगा है या देख नहीं सकता है, उनका पूरी तरह से सरकार ख्याल रखना चाहिए और उन्हें उनकी जो सोच है और जो वो जीवन में बनना चाहते हैं उस हिसाब से उनकी मदद करनी चाहिए। ये मेरा कहने का मतलब है।
सर, आपका सुझाव जो हंडे द्वारा समर्थ ये हम पहल शुरू कर रहे हैं, क्या आपको लगता है किस दिशा में इनको फोकस करना चाहिए आपके राज्य में? सही
नहीं, हमने तो अपने राज्य में फोकस करना शुरू कर दिया है। हमने अपने राज्य में सहारा योजना, कोई एक आदमी जो चल नहीं सकता उसके साथ एक आदमी को जो जाएगा उसके साथ, उसको हर महीने हम पैसे देते हैं। हमने तो उस दृष्टि से सोचना शुरू कर दिया है, लेकिन इसमें बहुत सुधार की जरूरत है। और समय समय पर जो परिस्थितियां बदलती है समय के अनुसार, उन परिस्थितियों के हिसाब से भी हमें आगे बढ़ने की जरूरत है। ये मेरा कहना है।
बिल्कुल, आपने हमें समय दिया, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। और आपने जो बहुत अहम शब्द का प्रयोग किया, सम्मान देना बहुत ज़रूरी है, उसके लिए भी आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। हांडे द्वारा समर्थ की इस पहल को आइए आगे बढ़ाते हैं। एक बार फिर से हम एक खास मंच पर मौजूद हैं, मंथन कर रहे हैं, चर्चा कर रहे हैं। मेरे साथ एक खास कुलीग मेरे को एंकर हैं, धन्या मेरे साथ मौजूद हैं। लोकोमोटिव डिसऑर्डर डिसेबिलिटी की ब्रांड एम्बेसडर साल की हमारे साथ धन्या हैं मौजूद। साथ ही मैं आपको बता दूं, हमारे साथ आराधना लाल है, लेवेंट्री की, निपुण मल्होत्रा हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं, सेंट स्टीफन से पढ़े हुए हैं, वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम ने इन्हें सम्मानित किया है। यहाँ पर मैं बता सकती हूँ विधि लीगल फाउंडेशन की दामिनी घोष हमारे साथ हैं, और नित्या रमेश जो हमारी स्पेसेस हैं, अर्बन स्पेसेस हैं, उनको हम किस तरह से डिज़ाइन कर सकते हैं, करते हैं भी, ये उसके बारे में हम बात करेंगे। पॉलिसीज़ के बारे में बात करेंगे, भवन निर्माण की हम बात करेंगे, किस तरह से जो पहुंचने के रास्ते सुगम हो सकते हैं उस पर बात करेंगे। सबसे पहले मैं धन्या रवि से बात करूंगी। धन्या, टेल अस अ बिट अबाउट योर जर्नी। इट हैजंट बीन इजी। यू हैव बीन अवॉर्डेड बाय नेशनल अवार्ड्स. You've come from Bangalore, and you're working with Enable India. Tell us a little bit more and how the journey has been till now.
Journey as of now has been very liberating, I would say. Just like you said, it wasn't easy. I come from a very traditional rural background. I hail from Kerala and I've been brought up in Bangalore. But no, as I born with this rare disease called osteogenesis imperfecta, but the condition of this character of this condition is that until teenage my bones used to fracture without an invitation, and until teenage I've gone through more than 200 fractures, and coping with that my childhood has always been more with the hospital, and I could not get into a mainstream schooling due to the lack of awareness in the at my home as well as in the special schools as well as in the mainstream school. So I done academics at homeschooling. So growing up as a child, I think in our life one of the most beautiful phase is always childhood, and my childhood has always been inside the four walls or inside, that's my room or hospital beds. So that was my initial till my teenage. And
if I may add, your teachers have done a wonderful job.
Absolutely.
Please tell us a bit more. How was it finding a teacher or the society around? How was it?
Thank you, Nidhi, for bringing this question, because whatever I am today, it is because of volunteers, I would say, and that is something we really need to have more in our country. So like I said, my parents was not so much aware of the importance of education for a woman with disability, not putting any gender bias, but keeping disability as an object. They were not sure, is it really important to educate me? And they said, let's teach what, my brother, I have an elder brother, so he can teach me. That's what the plan was. And then my neighbor auntie came down and said to my father that I'm going to teach Lenya every day 1 hour, and then started my journey with proper mainstream books where I got it done from my friends every year as on. So 10 years she voluntarily taught me. So looking back, I would say now I don't regret of not going to the mainstream school, because she was one among 10 teachers, I would say. There's a lot that I learned more than academics.
So Tanya, let's take this program forward now.
Absolutely. I think I like to ask Nipun this question, because today morning I came with my friend, he's a volunteer and a very good friend of mine. So when I came with the airport and all the scanning and all of that, I was just thinking, when will actually get rid of this as a wheelchair user? How can we break these kind of barriers? And Nipun, I think you are one who always came up with the solutions or spoke for the community, and there's a lot that you have brought down, like Amazon app and X-ray scanning at the airport, security, GST, and many of that. So can you just provide some more, like how we together as a collective work on this, and how did you get started with that?
Sure, I think that's a very important question, and I cannot take full credit for all those movements. I think it's a collective effort of the disability movement. But when you speak about scanning at airports, etc., I think it is a pity that a lot of airports today use X-ray machines to get people out of wheelchairs or even make people with disabilities remove their prosthetics, etc. During security checks. Interestingly, the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security has actually come up with a policy that that doesn't need to be done. And me, along with a group of disability activists, had met the CISF and the BCS, and these rules were changed. Implementation, of course, becomes a challenge, because of which there are a lot of states and a lot of airports where that is still not done. And but the rule is there, and I think that is really the story of India in the last 10 years when it comes to disability. I think a lot has moved forward in terms of creating policies, laws, etc. We have the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 that came up, which said that in 5 years all public buildings will be accessible. You spoke about this airport security, etc. as well. So I think we've seen the intent over the last 5 to 10 years, but I think now it's the time for execution. And I hope this Samarth by Hyundai campaign pushes the government, the private sector and all other stakeholders to start executing what's really written on paper in terms of laws and policies.
अपने एग्जीक्यूशन की बात की, आराधना लाल हमारे साथ लेमन ट्री से मौजूद हैं। मैम ज़रा अपने होटल चेन्स के बारे में बताइए, किस तरह से जो आपकी हायरिंग पॉलिसीज़ हैं, how does it work, what is the thought behind it?
Thanks so much. So at Lemon Tree Hotels, we've been hiring people with disability for the last 16 years, and it's part of our HR strategy. हम लोग की कंपनी का ये policy है actually. और disability में there are many different kinds of disability present in our hotels. It includes the deaf, people with a physical handicap, people with low vision, and in the last 11 years we've done work with intellectual and developmental disability as well as autism, basically the neurodiverse disabilities. And what we are finding is that the more we venture into this, the more benefits come our way. So that I'll explain this. When our customers observe that there are team members who have a disability and they can see वो कितनी अच्छी तरह trained हैं और जो भी उनको task करना है वो कर पा रहे हैं, चाहे वो coffee shop में हो, चाहे front desk में हो, चाहे housekeeping में हो, and they observe that the service is being given to them the way they want to receive it, and it is of good quality like any other person, that acceptance goes to a new level altogether. Our company is inclusive, yes. But because we have so many customers who stay with us across our 96 hotels in more than 58 destinations, we are in a way passing this message on forward, and people are able to observe the reality of it, because बोलना बड़ा आसान है, मगर अगर हम ट्रेनिंग ठीक से नहीं देंगे और वो सर्विस ठीक से नहीं देंगे, why will the guest come and stay with us? Why will the guest pay money if he doesn't receive service from a well-trained person? That's what his expectation is. So we've been able to build a model around it, a lot of focus on learning and development, on training, and a lot of focus on sensitization. This thought process has come from our chairman and managing director, and the leadership team has totally understood it and has bought into it. But if we have an employee base, total base of say 8,000, 9,000 people, how are they going to understand? We have to first sensitize them. So on a regular basis across our hotels, we talk about why disability, what are the benefits. Then we talk specifically about if there are deaf team members in your team, how shall you work with them. We teach everybody Indian Sign Language. Now this is an interesting thought. I believe in school actually, we should be teaching, of course, English, we should be teaching Hindi, and we should be teaching Indian Sign Language. I'm really proud to say all 7,000 plus employees of Lemon Tree Hotels, we know Hindi, we know English, and we know Indian Sign Language. We do.
दामिनी घोष हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं, विधि लीगल से जुड़ी हुई हैं, रिसर्च बहुत की है इस वर्क के लिए आप लोगों ने, तमाम नीतियां बनती हैं, ऐलान होते हैं, कानून के बारे में भी अगर कुछ है भी तो भी लोगों को पता नहीं है जो ये दिव्यांग वर्ग है। ज़रा बताइए क्या सिचुएशन आपने ज़मीन पर पाई?
Sure, thank you. So a little bit about the Center for Legal Policy. We were set up in 2013 as a legal research think tank to make better laws and improve governance. And while we work on diverse practice areas, disability is something which we have started looking at more recently. And one of the aspects which we have covered is accessibility, particularly access to urban spaces. And really the work is about original independent legal research to understand the barriers in our urban spaces, which when they interact with the impairments of a person with disability and how they hamper that person from leading an independent life of their choice. So I think one of the main findings which came out through the course of last few years where we've done this work is specifically in the context of access to cities has been that the law is there. The Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act is a robust legal framework. It reflects our commitments under the UNCRPD. But one of the issues that came out was that lot of the enforcement machinery within the law itself, which is your SCPDs, your district level committees, the special courts, when framework like that has already been provided under the legislation, why is it that those have still not been put in place, right? The requirement of having accessibility standards for services and facilities which a city can offer, right? This is across sectors. Why have all those accessibility standards and requirements not been enacted till more recently, right? We now see a spate of initiatives being rolled out by the government. So I would say that while the framework is there, a lot of the details within the framework need to be acted upon. As Nipun said that the law was there, the framework is laid out, now we really need to take action.
Just a quick short question, 119 laws which were discriminatory,
Yes.
आप लोगों की संस्था द्वारा उनको हटाया गया, थोड़ा सा बताइए इसके बारे में.
This was in relation to laws which had ableist provisions which discriminated against persons with leprosy. So it started as an exercise of us doing a full-blown legal analysis, finding it out, and then we had all this research. And but the question is, what is the impact of that research? Where is it going from there? And one option is, of course, we can approach different government departments across states and do it on a piece-by-piece basis, which is a very, very time-consuming process. We also felt at that time, this was some time back, that filing a more strategic litigation before the Supreme Court to take note of this exercise actually had a huge impact. It set a precedent which sort of triggered a movement within various state governments to start repealing these kind of discriminatory provisions.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to ask you itself, like, what is this next level of policies or frameworks that you're working on?
Okay, so right now a lot of the work, as I was mentioning, has been generally on access to urban spaces, and what has to be remembered with disability is, when I talk as a lawyer, is that it cuts across practice areas. You know, there is a whole component of access to urban spaces, then there's health, education, early intervention, sports, you name it. So it cuts across. The second aspect which one needs to keep in mind is that the implementation or the framework itself is spread across the central, the state, as well as the local levels. So there is a lot going on in that sense. And what we feel is that while a lot of our work has been general, now we've sort of started narrowing down on specific areas of intervention. So a lot of our work has been about focusing on, say, parks, on making inclusive play spaces, or to sort of put together representations on making buses accessible. We would have seen there has been a lot of talk about buses over the last few months, whether in Karnataka or at a national level. How, when we are procuring buses, at the start itself, can we have a framework where accessibility measures are already incorporated rather than as an afterthought?
Nithya, you are from Jana Urban Space. What is the mindset of people? How have you seen any change? And when you design the roads, the entrances to the buildings, not only the government buildings, but parks, etc. And you work in so many states, it's not only in one Karnataka or Chennai where you're based. So what is the difference, or what do you have to say on that?
So I would really like to second what she said. We have great harmonized guidelines in the center, but unfortunately it's not mandated that you follow it. So if I were to build a building, I'm a developer, it's important for me to follow the fire norms to get the fire NOC. Right? And that is how I can then go ahead and sell my houses or whatever it is I'm building. But it is not important or imperative that I get a disability NOC. So I can go ahead and build what I want, and while it's there at the center, it gets diluted at the state, and by the time it comes to the ULBs, where your engineers building your footpath or building a park, this is not in their mind frame. It's not that the average engineer wants to make our city not inclusive. They just don't know. And then there is no enforcement, or the guidelines are not disseminated enough. There's not enough awareness. There's not enough capacity building. If you look at our cities or look at the work we do, when we say we want to build inclusive streets and public spaces for all, it's not just for the disabled. It's for all of us, right? We're so intertwined. If you have a walkable footpath with widely spaced bollards that a wheelchair can go through, so can a stroller, so can an elderly person with a walker. If you have a wheelchair-friendly sink, it also helps all the children. Many of us who are parents know the trouble of always having to carry our child to a sink. India has one of the longest coastlines. We're a peninsula, but except Chennai, I haven't yet seen a beach which has a boardwalk that allows wheelchair users to go near the sea.
Absolutely, you raised a very important point. निपुण मुझे आपसे ये सवाल पूछना था. आपने हम सिर्फ जैसे बीचेस की बात हुई, जीवन सिर्फ पोस्ट ऑफिस या ATMs या हॉस्पिटल्स तक ही लिमिटेड नहीं है. म्यूज़िक फेस्टिवल्स के लिए, लाइब्रेरीज़ के लिए आपने पूरी एक जद्दोजहद लड़ी है, और उसके बाद कुछ चीज़ें हो पाई हैं. आप ज़रा बताइए उसके बारे में, क्योंकि आपने ज़ोमैटो ऐप में एक फ़िल्टर लगवाया किस तरह से व्हीलचेयर एक्सेसिबिलिटी किसी रेस्टोरेंट में है कि नहीं, वो आप चेक कर सकते हैं. तो ये अपने आप में बहुत अहम है. थोड़ा उसके बारे में.
हाँ जी, एक्चुअली प्रॉब्लम इंडिया में क्या ये होती है कि जब लोग पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटीज़ को देखते हैं तो उनको एज अ बेचारा एटीट्यूड के साथ देखते हैं, और देखते हैं कि बेसिकली उनको रोटी कपड़ा मकान चाहिए और उसके अलावा उनकी कोई ख्वाहिशें नहीं हैं. जब ज़ोमैटो ऐप की बात है, इसके पीछे एक थोड़ी छोटी कहानी है जो मैं 30 सेकंड में बताऊंगा. कि 2015 में मैं एक पब के अंदर एंटर कर रहा था अपने कुछ दोस्तों के साथ, और जब मैं पब एंटर कर रहा था, जो उस पब का जो मैनेजर था उसने बोला कि हम आपको एंट्री अलाउ नहीं करेंगे क्योंकि हमारा माहौल ख़राब हो जाएगा अगर हम पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटी को अंदर अलाउ करेंगे. और मैंने ट्विटर पे जाके उसको ट्वीट किया और वो इशू पूरा ट्रेंड होने लग गया, और मेरे को बहुत लोगों ने फ़ोन किया उसके बाद बोल के कि हमारे साथ भी ऐसी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हुई है, ऐसे चैलेंजेस हुए हैं एट्सेट्रा. तो मेरे को लगा कि कोई इंस्टीट्यूशनल चेंज की ज़रूरत है. तब मैं ज़ोमैटो के पास गया और मैंने ज़ोमैटो को रिक्वेस्ट किया और ज़ोमैटो के साथ काम किया टू ऐड दीज व्हीलचेयर एक्सेस फिल्टर्स. इससे दो काम होते हैं. एक तो यू कैन आइडेंटिफाई कि कौन सा रेस्टोरेंट एक्सेसिबल है और कौन सा नहीं है. पर दूसरा, जब ज़ोमैटो जैसा एक एग्रीगेटर रेस्टोरेंट्स के सवाल पूछने लग जाता है तो रेस्टोरेंट्स के अंदर भी एक एटीट्यूड चेंज हो जाता है फॉर पर्सन्स विद डिसेबिलिटीज़. उसके बाद मुझे लगा कि पर्सन्स विद डिसेबिलिटीज़ को बाहर भी जाना है, सेलिब्रेट भी करना है. सो आई स्टार्टेड वर्किंग विद अ लॉट ऑफ फेस्टिवल्स टू मेक देम एक्सेसिबल. फॉर एग्जाम्पल NH7 वीकेंडर एक म्यूजिक फेस्टिवल होता था जिनके साथ हमने काम किया टू फुली मेक इट एक्सेसिबल. म्यूजिक कॉन्सर्ट्स होते हैं जिसमें लोग ज़्यादा खड़े होते हैं, व्हीलचेयर यूज़र को तो कुछ दिखता ही नहीं है बिकॉज वो बैठे होते हैं, लोअर हाइट पे होते हैं. तो फॉर देम फॉर एग्जाम्पल व्हाई नॉट हैव अ हायर्ड सीटिंग प्लेस. जयपुर लिटरेरी फेस्टिवल में मैंने व्हीलचेयर्स देनी शुरू कर दी बिकॉज रियलाइज की काफ़ी एल्डरली पॉपुलेशन वहाँ पे आती है और उनको चलने में दिक्कत आती है. एंड इनफैक्ट मैं तो ये बोलता हूँ कि पीपल कैन नॉट बी डिवाइडेड इनटू पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटीज एंड पीपल विदाउट डिसेबिलिटीज. एवरीबडी इज टेम्पररी एबल बॉडीड, क्योंकि जब भी कोई बुजुर्ग होगा उनको सेम रिक्वायरमेंट्स होंगी जो एक पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटी के पास है. तीसरा, एक सेरेंडिपिटी आर्ट्स फेस्टिवल गोवा में होता है, वहाँ पे हमने काफ़ी काम करना शुरू कर दिया. सो आई थिंक इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट कि पब्लिक स्पेसेस में बाहर पीपल विद डिसेबिलिटीज आएँ और लाइफ को सेलिब्रेट करें, और उसी से सोसाइटी का एटीट्यूड भी चेंज होगा कि एक पर्सन विद डिसेबिलिटी भी एक कंप्लीट ह्यूमन बीइंग है और उसकी वही ख्वाहिशें हैं जो बाकी किसी और की.
बिल्कुल. आराधना, 40% जो हमारे डिसेबल्ड आबादी हमारे देश की, उनके पास जॉब्स नहीं हैं, और आप अपने होटल्स में जिस तरह से लेती हैं, क्या आपके सुझाव हैं किस तरह से आगे बढ़ा जाए कि और जो कॉर्पोरेट्स हैं या सर्विस सेक्टर में और इनका दखल बढ़े?
So in the last 5 years, maybe even the last 10 years, I've seen a lot of change, whether it's the hotel sector, restaurant sector, retail, IT, ITES, banking. There are many companies that have expressed an interest in hiring people with disability as a normal part of their policy, not as an exception. And we've had the good chance or the good opportunity to be able to share our best practices with many organizations. So what we have been able to tell them is that in these 16 years, we have seen that there are about 6 or 7 steps that you need to take to make your company truly inclusive. I can say it very simply to you. At the very top of the company, this belief that it is a business benefit actually to go for inclusion must come in at the head of the company and then get cascaded through. That's the first step. The second step is you need someone to focus on inclusion. That's what my job is. And that's how we can do pilots, we can do experiments, we can try new disabilities. The third step is you have to sensitize everybody in the organization. I mentioned that. Tell them why and tell them about different disabilities. The fourth step is job mapping. So any company who wants to bring a person in who's got special needs will have to examine the tasks of every role. So in our company, what happens at the front desk? What happens in the coffee shop? What are those 20 or 30 tasks a person does on a daily basis? If I bring a deaf team member into the team, can he do all those 30 tasks? If I bring a person with Down syndrome, can they do all the 30 tasks? This process is called job mapping. You take the help of your NGO partners because they are experts. We are hoteliers after all. You take their help to analyze and study, and that's how you work it out, that which job and which disability.
I wanted to just ask both of them, like how the urban space and the center, VB Center has been influencing the kind of framework, your research influences to the government, and how do you kind of take it up? Like how does the research made an impact?
As I mentioned earlier, the core of our work is research. Then after research, the next step that comes is dissemination, which is taking it to all stakeholders, which is not just government, but even public stakeholders, our collaborators, our partners. And after that comes, for us, impact is if we are able to convert that research into an engagement with the government. So typically in my experience at Vidhi, when we go take our work to particular stakeholders who are willing to make change within the government, sometimes they may take it up immediately. Sometimes they may come back in a few years' time saying that आपने ये बोला था, अब हमें करना है. Sometimes it may happen, they'll say, okay, we don't want to do this, but can you please help us out with this instead? This is the need of the hour. So and there are often times where we actually constantly engage, we are in touch, we stay relevant, we put our work out there to understand what is it that the government is interested in doing, whether it's at the center, at the state level, and we take forward our research to them. So there are different ways to sort of engage with the government and see what comes out. So in fact, more recently, we were interacting with the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. So, and we had gone to talk about some of our present research work, and it ultimately culminated into putting together a case compendium for all Supreme Court and High Court judgments, because the need was felt to sensitize persons with disabilities, their caregivers, and even persons without disabilities about the contours of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act and what the courts have had to say about it. So engagements and impact can translate into different ways.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सभी का यहाँ पर आए, और वाकई में मंजिल उनकी साथ हमारा है, आगे बढ़ते हैं और ये मंचन और ये मंथन यहाँ पर हम जारी रखेंगे. एक छोटा सा हम लोग ब्रेक ले रहे हैं. धन्यवाद.
So welcome back. We've been talking through the morning with ministers, those who head state governments, disability rights advocates, people who make policies about how to create greater accessibility, because ultimately this is what this is entirely about. What can you and I do to begin with? Just a few suggestions. Head over to our website, ndtv.com/Samarth, and pledge to play your part, because that's so important in empowering those with disabilities. If you're a corporate, build the spaces that welcome the disabled. Create the policies that make place for them, sensitize the workforce that can become their allies. These are just a couple of common sense suggestions, but so important. I want to come across here very quickly, in fact, to Dr. Rajkumar, business head of the Adani Realty Group. Thanks very much. It's been wonderful to have you over here. And it's also important for us because it's an occasion for a big announcement in support of this very noble cause.
First of all, I would like to thank Hyundai for conducting such a wonderful program, and which helps the overall society in a very inclusive way. And we do understand there's a requirement of inclusion of all the people with different abilities to come up in hand with the people who are able. So we would like to take certain pledge. And as a process, I would like to read out those pledges, those commitments to all of us. So in anticipation, the evolving landscape, Adani Group pledge and recognize the imperative for a well-planned intervention over the next 3 years through this platform. This strategic initiative is designed not only to enhance our support for persons with disabilities, but also to strengthen the culture that goes beyond mere words, demonstrating our proactive commitment to fostering inclusivity within our organization. Our commitments towards these initiatives are, most important is inclusive hiring initiative. So at Adani, we have planned to have 200 plus persons with disabilities to hire within next 3 years on various functions, wherever it suits. Recognizing the wealth of talent and diversified perspective they bring to our organization. The second is sensitization workshop. So our goal is to achieve the full participation of individuals directly involved in hiring, reporting and all support functions, reaching a 100% engagement rate. The third is career development opportunities. So all we are talking about the employment as a whole. Our organization commits to actively promoting career development opportunities for persons with disabilities through skill building programs, job rotations and executive leadership program to ensure equal access to professional growth once they are in. Fourth is the flexible work arrangements. We also understand some flexibility is required despite of whatever we do, right? So we commit to provide flexible work arrangements to accommodate the diverse need of individuals because the disabilities are different in nature. Diverse need of individuals who are differently abled. And the last and not the least, wellness program for differently abled individuals. Our initiative includes access to counseling service, participation in wellness campaigns, and the creation of stigma-free environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So just a small example of what the Adani Group is doing over there. We've got so much more to talk about, and I'm just going to come and sit right next to you. Well, as we said earlier, this pledge is not and should not be for corporates alone. We can all make a pledge to make a difference by changing our attitudes and perceptions, by asking questions of the spaces around us, and by teaching our kids, our children about disabilities, what they can do to the body and what they can't stop anyone from achieving. Now, we have some wonderful guests with us.
Absolutely,
and Dhanya's
yeah.
very keen to introduce them. Why don't you go ahead?
Thanks, Vishnu. I think rightly said, we all need to just rework with our mindset, and there's a big possibility. And this is something that we started today, Samarth by Hyundai. So just inviting the next panel speakers.
Dhanya, I must tell you that I've got a hero of mine right here on this stage, right now. Dr. Chona taught me at Delhi Public School, Arkipuram. She was my principal.
Wow.
Tamanna is somebody who I have known for 35 years plus.
Okay, awesome. So I like to understand, like, we all speak with a parent. And what is it like to be a parent of a person with disability? And how does you create the sensitivity? And how has it been as a journey as a mother?
He was just going to be our child and treat him like our older son. And we gave him every opportunity. We took him on every holiday, every outing, every restaurant. We never said, oh, maybe he can't do this. Oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. He just went with us and we've just done that from day one. He's 22 today. He has good days, he has bad days, he's wicked as hell, if I could use that term. Naughty, his teachers are sitting right here who can say that, but we never ever thought we would make any difference in his life.
So you're naughty, huh? You're naughty and with your mom and your friends.
Well, he may not answer because, you know, he's a little shy, but I mean, he's done things like really naughty. He's angry with our helper, so he locked her outside and locked all the doors. So the guard from downstairs had to tell us. I said, what did she do? He said, I told her, let's go and play, and she said, no, I'm busy.
So I was just about to ask, like, how did you actually assist him to be in this world?
So we decided from the beginning, and we had a lot of family support, that we would do everything in our ability to help him. If it was early intervention, we were living overseas for 25 odd years, and we decided to come back when he turned 18, or just short of 18, because India was a country where we wanted to live. And he needed to come and be in touch with who he is. You know, we lived in the Middle East, we lived in Australia, all very well. Wonderful life, but he needed to come and understand this is his country, this is where he needs to live. And we then got introduced, we first thought we'd put him into Vasant Valley, he was too old, and we went to Pallavanjali, which is where Nikhil's now at the institute. And I can't tell you, it has transformed him.
Yeah.
He's become independent, he spends nights out, he goes on holidays, he does it all. He plays tennis, he swims, he gets disciplined like any other child. He routinely gets disciplined. There's no, oh, let it be, usko pata nahi. There's no pata nahi. He knows. And he has to be aware that what is right and what is wrong.
Right.
So that is our journey.
Dr. Chora, let me ask you, ma'am, you used to teach us in school, you were our principal, and there were thousands of us at Delhi Public School, RK Puram, and you were a particular type of educator, very strict one also, by the way. But when you went back home, you had to cater to Tamanna, her very special needs, her needs in growing up, her emotional requirements. How for you was it such a challenge, from working in that school environment and then coming back home and being an educator and a friend and a mother in a very different sense?
If I can have a student like you, then my mothering became very easy. Dear friends, you'll be so surprised that I didn't really bring up Tamanna alone. The whole student community was bringing up Tamanna. And that's a fact. I would sometimes bring her to the school itself, and all the kids wanted to help me. They said, ma'am, you go teach. We'll play with her. We'll look after her. And that gave her the confidence to be with more and more people. She was not in a world by herself. She was in a world of dipsides. So Vishnu being an example, you can understand what fortune I had. For me, DPS and home, kids and my own kids were one. And I think that's what makes a difference in the life of a teacher. I was in DPS for 40 years. Tamanna turns 53. And when I came to DPS, and she was just about 13, but the doctor said that she is like a 3-year-old baby. So you appreciate what I'm trying to say? She was 10 years behind time, having been born with cerebral palsy and delayed milestones. But I did not leave one stone unturned to be able to reach out to the physiotherapist, speech therapist, and the school, DPS, the society, gave me 2 years at different times to take her to UK and USA for education, where I also educated myself. And that's how 40 years ago we set up Tamanna. And today we have thousands of students who passed out of Tamanna, and they're also working. All I'm trying to say is that you need the community to bring up Tamannas of the world. I wouldn't be flattering really NDTV, but we need more such programs.
Can we just ask Tamanna the question?
Yeah.
That, like I as a person with disability, we come across a lot of questions, like what you can do, what you cannot do. So I really feel like fixing a ramp or a braille is much easier. So Tamanna, would you just maybe Tamanna or ma'am can just answer, how do you kind of deal with, rework with the attitude, access to attitude and perceptions, where we can be accepted the way we are or meant to be. How do you think we can create such a space, or how did you create that?
Actually, all my friends used to make fun of me. That became a joke. And I told them, first look at yourself. And basically, actually I'm very friendly person. I love to take phone numbers, and I love to be friends with everybody. And basically I've come a long way. I think disability is not a big disease. If I can do it, so can you guys. And I was being taken to America for my treatment, and I was being taken to Vellore. Then I came on the TV that Halloween night, and basically then I became a witch, where I used to scare everybody there, and then basically now I am a teacher with small babies. I have a child in my class in nursery D class. Her name is Meher. So she can't speak, though she can write very well. So we are training her how to speak and all that. And her nanny comes. Basically, I think disability can be cured, and the people can understand that disability can be overcome. Actually, I'm not disabled, I'm enabled also.
Absolutely, and I think that's just such a encouraging, Tamanna, and wonderful thing to say. But I wanted to actually ask a question to you and similar to what I asked Tamanna, Dhanya asked Tamanna, about perceptions and battling perceptions and stereotype and stigma. As a parent, I mean, how do you deal with it?
So now you've touched a really raw nerve, okay? So Nikhil is very chatty with friends, but is a little shy in a public space. What I find so difficult, I can deal with anything, I can fight any battle. But when children lock like a football field, you have in a condominium, you have them locked, and make him sit outside. And I think that awareness, when parents send their children down to play, we live in a condo, so I can come from only there, is that when you leave him out, he has feelings. He comes home with tears. That is my toughest battle, is how do I explain to him that they don't want to play with you, because that's what it is. They don't want to play with you because maybe he's different, he does look different. And that awareness has to come from deep within our society. It's not all right to say, oh, chalo, isko line mein, let him go in front of the line. No. There has to be, and when they say, oh, there's inclusion, it has to come from deep within every parent to allow that child to be included. There is a parent in our condo who's very kind to him and allows him. But one man is not going to turn the tide. Yes, every drop makes, a difference. Or they'll do things like, throw stones at him and get him agitated. Anybody will get agitated if you're teased. It's not peculiar to him, it's to any child.
And it's a constant battle.
It's a constant battle. In fact, if I didn't have a network of friends, family, fellow parents who were there to calm me down, I don't know. I mean, one day I just decided that, I just need to publish the kind of messages that are going around, like you need to keep out, like if you have a dog who has rabies and who has to be kept out, that kind of message, I still have it. It's a reality check for me to realize that it's not all roses. The roses are there, like I know Mrs. Chona personally, she's family to me. She's always said, don't worry, you can fight this battle. You can fight every battle, but you can't fight when someone is being mean to your child.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is very hurtful for a parent.
Dr. Chona, is that something, I mean, I know you would have gone through as well, fighting stigma. Did you at times in your own life feel exhausted or tired that how long am I going to be able to actually do this?
Vishnu, I'd like to introduce myself as Mrs. Chona, whom you see, confident, happy, smiling, social. And there is another Mrs. Chona which is inside that Mrs. Chona. That Mrs. Chona is hidden, which I would like to share with you.
Yeah, just put the...
I am taking you to another level of this discussion, and that level is the one that we all need to give attention to. What about our children after us? You have the best of friends, you have the best of family, but finally, we are going to outlive them. So, has the government thought about assistive living where you can have a lifestyle which matches the lifestyle of an individual child with any kind of a problem that will be able to take the responsibility of high standard and not of the kind that we hear about the orphanages run by the government. What we are looking for is land, we are looking for cottages, we are looking for psychologists, as in Germany, in Europe, in America, in most of the countries. These kids live together and they are actually taken responsibility of. What I fear at this age is that Tamanna has had the best of time. She has a very, very loving brother and sister-in-law. But finally, Tamanna is not the whole world. There is this situation where we need to think about 50 years from now, 40 years from now, 30 years from now, what's going to happen. So I would like, there's a lot of corporate presence here, to think about it, and there are enough people who will put their heads together to run these small homes where there are play fields, there are some kind of leisure activities, like you have, you know, already set up in Dehradun and some places where old people can live. We should not be having this program only on the day of disability. We should have part of the day in every channel devoted to that 10 to 15% of the population that requires to be understood, where awareness has to be created, where an atmosphere of life of acceptability has to be created. We need a kind of literature which has not been promoted about stories about people where, you know, others can read each other to know how common their problems are. We should be celebrating a superability day. There is no such word as a disability. This is actually, they are more enabled, the kind of emotions, the love, the affection, the kind of feelings they have is much greater than any of us, where we get very, individualistic, ego comes to play, our careers become more important, but they are the ones who are giving, giving and giving. The love that they have, the purity of love that they have is absolutely divine.
Go ahead, you wanted to say something, Tamanna?
Actually now, let's take a pledge by standing up.
Sure, let's all stand up. Come.
Disability.
Disability
is not a disease.
Is not a disease.
We shall overcome it.
We shall overcome
it.
And so can you do it.
And you can also do it.
And so that I can also do it.
And so that I can also do it.
And it can be cured with a lot of help.
It can be cured with a lot of help.
And I would like to announce that we can take a step forward about disability.
About disability.
Thank you.
Thank you. How wonderful. And I think that's just a brilliant way for us to segue into a small break. And I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us with the promise that we go ahead.
Just adding a note, Vishnu, that we say it takes a village to raise a boy, and like ma'am said, just little bit to this, adding to the pledge of what Tamana said, I'd just like to say this same thing, following the popular saying that it takes a village to raise a boy, and Samarth by Hyundai is just doing that, creating more celebration, and I'm sure it will not end just by today. Rather, it's just going to be a beginning for persons with disability to feel accepted.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Actually, I want to say one more thing. I have written a book also. I am Tamanna, and with the help of Aditi, and I am a painter. Thank you.
कितना आसान है हमारे लिए एक नजर में सोच लेना कि वो असमर्थ है, जबकि उनका जुनून, उनकी हर जीत ये बताती है कि वो कितने समर्थ हैं। शान से उठे सर को पता है वो कितने समर्थ हैं। जीत पर गूंज रहे राष्ट्रगान के हर शब्द को पता है वो कितने समर्थ हैं। पानी की गहराइयों को पता है वो कितने समर्थ हैं। हर रुकी नजर को पता है कि वो कितने समर्थ हैं। हर निशाने को पता है वो कितने समर्थ हैं। चलो इनकी मिसाल से दुनिया की सोच बदलें। चलो एक ऐसी दुनिया बनाएं जहां ये अपने ख्वाब को खुद पूरा कर पाए। समर्थ बाय Hyundai, मंजिल उनकी, साथ हमारा। इस पहल के साथ जुड़े hyundai.co.in पर लॉग इन करें।
Discover Bihar, Eastern India's land of untapped potential. From textiles to technology, agriculture to innovation, Bihar is a buzzing hub of diverse opportunities. Bihar is turning your visions into realities. State-of-the-art facilities, robust policies, proactive and transparent governance, and a skilled workforce await your venture in one of India's fastest-growing economies. Be part of Bihar Business Connect 2023, where global investors meet local opportunities. Invest in Bihar. Shape the future.
Get the magic of the best working for you now.
Link your payment cards once, collect rewards forever.
In a world with rapidly shifting power dynamics, India is emerging as a global power. With its new standing, how do Indians view the world? When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and center. A show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people. From breaking news to in-depth analysis, covering the latest developments across politics, business and technology, bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
Business news can sound incomprehensible, unnerving, unrelatable. But how does it impact you? We deconstruct complex business news and ideas by talking directly to the leaders who shape the economy. We are serious about business.
When there's too much talking but very little being said, too many voices but hardly any being heard, you turn to a show that puts you front and Center, a show that headlines the stories of the people, by the people, for the people. From breaking news to in-depth analysis, covering the latest developments across politics,
Business and technology.
bringing you stories that shape our nation and the world.
When it comes to sports, we set the ball rolling.
Because we have our eyes on the ball.
Because we want to get you the best.
Latest updates,
Top interviews
and analysis
from around the globe.
It's wonderful that we can have these conversations, have them candidly, and have them on a continuing basis, because I think the key point that that Hyundai and NDTV are keen to showcase is that these conversations will carry on. It's not just about today. Well, we've got a very special guest on the program, a person who perhaps has many of the answers and solutions that we want to talk about, that we are looking at, the Union Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs, Hardeep Singh Puri. It gives us great pleasure to now invite Mr. Puri to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you very much, Vishnu. Thank you, NDTV. Let me start by conveying my warm greetings to many of my friends who are here today. And I'm particularly pleased that this program is specially for you. And if I were to start recounting each of our associations, I think that will take a long time. We are looking at this issue particularly in the urban context. So let me start with defining what the urban context is in India today. Any context setting that we do in terms of our cities, we should start by acknowledging that you will have 400, 500, going up to even 600 million people living in urban spaces in the years to come. The second and perhaps more important point in the context setting which I want to do is that countries and societies can be measured in different ways. An easier empirical way of measuring how well you are doing would flow from your economic performance, the size of your GDP, your economic growth, etc. But I don't think the world has placed too much emphasis on that. I think countries and societies are assessed in terms of how humane they are, how sensitive they are to those segments of the population which require special attention. And I think that is the focus of our discussion, or what I'm going to say to you today. Let me start with the 9 years of the Modi government. I think in terms of the philosophical construct of the government, it comes from the point that the philosophy is from Antodaya se Sarvodaya. In English, that would be from the farthest first, which also, by the way, is the philosophy of the Sustainable Development Goals, which were adopted by the United Nations, or the Agenda 2030 as it is called. That Agenda 2030 started later, but I think the Modi government started putting these philosophical coordinates in practice when the Prime Minister assumed responsibility in May 2014. What have we done in the cities? In the year 2016, model building bylaws were issued by the Town and Country Planning Organization under my ministry, which was then known as the Ministry of Urban Development. In Chapter 8, there is a detailed set of guidelines that city governments or urban local bodies and state governments have to comply with. Some states and urban local bodies are proactive, and you see changes happening on the ground, and gradually the local population too generally becomes more sensitive. Today, till now, as we speak, the provisions in the building bylaws for differently abled and elderly persons have been enacted by 28 states and 7 union territories. Therein lies the catch, but like being a state subject, the central government can issue a model law as we did for RERA, but it is for the states to legislate and make compliance more stringent. I often say this in my public engagements, but I think this is a very good point which bears repetition here. The success of a government project really lies in the fact that it transcends from being a government project to a project of the people. And the Swachhta Andolan, or the sanitation campaign, I think is a classic case, because there it has become a Jan Andolan. Indore as a city turns up number 1 in the Swachhta Sarvekshan, or the sanitation survey we do year after year, year after year. This is a classic case where a project of the government has become a project of the people. I am giving this example of Swachhta because I can't think of any other government project which has met with this kind of success. Today, when we talk about Accessible India, which was launched in December 2015, making it a nationwide movement, Sugamiya Bharat Abhiyan, making it easier for those of our citizens, younger and older, who have disabilities. Now, essentially, what have we done after 2014? We have strengthened the laws. The Right of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016 was enacted, making non-compliance of provisions punishable under the law. Together with enactments, a rigorous campaign was launched to ensure awareness among all sections of society. You might ask, is that enough? To which my answer would be, no, it is not enough. But then my response would be, this is what the government can do. The rest has to come from society, and that's where people like you, my friends, Mrs. Chona, civil society, all of you have to step forward. Why? For the simple reason that governmental action can be helpful, it is imperative, it is a must, but it has to be supplemented by what the corporate sector does. And I find many of my friends whom I meet in other events done by my friends in the corporate sector, they have to step forward. Then you have a genuine partnership between government, civil society, the corporate sector, and today I'm very happy that a foreign company is doing this here, because whether it is a Hyundai Motors or it is a Samsung or any other thing, their civic consciousness, that is what makes the difference. The NBCC and CPWD are 2 agencies under my ministry that ensure that all buildings constructed adhere to the norms which we have spelt out in the building bylaws scrupulously. Tenders which are floated need to specify all criteria again without exception. In the recent Kartavya Path that we have built, we have provided disabled friendly toilets and ramps or tactiles for the visually impaired. The new Parliament building is fully accessible as per the guidelines and standards set for universal accessibility in India 2021. The features include, and I list a few, appropriate synergies all over the building and outside, obstruction-free sidewalks and pathways, access ramps each at 3 public entrances, accessible toilets with grab bars, security access ways with clear width of 900 millimeters for wheelchairs, drinking water fountains at low heights with adequate knee clearance, lift with call buttons and braille indicators, grab rails in lift and staircases designated accessible seating for wheelchair users in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha chambers, wheelchair access provided in visitors' galleries. I just want to step back from the provisions for the disabled or those who have disabilities, and I want to go back to what was happening before 2014. And I think the cardinal point, which most of us don't realize, anyone would have found it difficult to navigate their way through the urban space if some fundamental changes had not been introduced in 2014. The urban space was subjected to neglect. I would even use the word criminal neglect before that. Wherever central agencies are involved, buildings, whether they are residential accommodation or office building, all these are being constructed using also the latest construction technologies, ensuring compliance with the provisions of the Disability Act. I don't particularly have any control on what private sector construction does, but indirectly I do have a control. If I can ensure that the building bylaws in the urban local bodies incorporate the provisions which makes it easier for my friends on wheelchairs or with other disabilities or those who are visually impaired, then the rest will follow. Going forward, let me say very frankly, as the Minister for Housing and Urban Affairs, I am very happy to assume responsibility on this front. If there are things that still need to be done and have not been addressed, I think at a central level we would welcome those suggestions. Therefore, I exhort each one of you to play your part in pointing out both where there have been derelictions by individuals, or if you think that the government should have been more proactive, you must pursue your local bodies and galvanize them to action. And I find that every interaction with the Divyanjan, I have come away energized and rejuvenated by their spirit of courage and their thirst for excellence. And I think the sky is literally the limit. It is we who have limitations in our thinking and abilities, as I keep saying. So I want to compliment NDTV, Mr. Pogalia, and our sponsors for hosting this show. I'm particularly happy that you have gathered all these activists here today, and I think this is what will make this event stand out in terms of from the normal events that the rest of us have the privilege of participating in. Thank you very much.
I'd like to invite on the stage Mr. Unsu Kim, MD and CEO of Hyundai Motor India, Mr. Tarun Garg, CEO of Hyundai Motor India, to present a small memento to Mr. Puri. Thank you very much. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and guests of all genders and ages. We are gathered here for the launch of a very special initiative that's intended as much more than just an initiative, because, we are doing this for several years. That's the hope. It doesn't end over here. That's the key goal. We hope to make this a movement, in fact, across the country. Samarth by Hyundai, mobility, accessibility, and inclusivity for all, because the disabilities that some of us have to live with should not define how we live or what we can or cannot achieve. And who better than to talk about that than Nitin Gadkari, the Minister for Road Transport and Highways. Thank you, sir, very much for spending some time with us. One of the biggest concerns that people raise across the country is accessibility on buses. Now, there are some statistics that point out that only 9% of buses in the country are accessible to those with disabilities. Now, there's only so much that the center can actually do, but do you believe that this is a problem that needs to be addressed?
You are absolutely correct. This is one of the problems because of our bus code. Particularly in the Western countries and USA, they are very strict about it. But now we have taken the decision about the bus code. Presently in India, We have got 1,50,000 buses. Number of accessible buses, 46,500, that is 32%. But still, as far as the buses are concerned, I am not satisfied about it. Somewhere in the buses, like in Pune and even in some city, it is very difficult to, even the way in which the doors and other things are not appropriate. Number of fully accessible buses is 9,239, that is 20%. And government is committed to make 25% of government-owned public transport vehicles fully accessible.
Right.
And it is the duty of the government, because this is the population, average 4% of the people are physically handicapped, because it is really, as far as the awareness in the Western countries, the USA, their picture is totally different. But in India, after 2014, when Modi ji taken charge as the Prime Minister, our government has given special priority for that.
आपने बसेस की बात की. आज हम हंडे द्वारा समर्थ एक कार्यक्रम, एक पहल की शुरुआत कर रहे हैं और उस ओर अपने आज दिन भर अपने जो दिव्यांग हैं, अपने विकलांग हैं, उनसे बातचीत की, उनसे चर्चा की. आपका जो मंत्रालय है, क्योंकि हमारी चेष्टा भी यही है कि उनकी राह जीवन की सुगम हो, और आपके मंत्रालय की भी कोशिश यही रही होगी कि उनका जीवन सुगम हो घर से बाहर निकलते ही. किस ओर आपका मंत्रालय आगे बढ़ रहा है, क्या आप हमसे साझा कर सकते हैं?
देखिए, आप हमको मदद करिए. मुझे जो भी ऐसे लोग अप्रोच होते हैं, कभी उनके आंखों में प्रॉब्लम होता है, किसी को हाथ नहीं चलता, किसी का पैर नहीं चलता, वो नीचे से ब्रेक नहीं लगा सकता, मैं धन्यवाद दूंगा ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री को कि 1,47,000 ऐसी कार है कि जो स्पेशली दिव्यांगजनों के लिए डिज़ाइन की गई है. और जब भी हम ऐसे प्रॉब्लम आते हैं तो मुझे बहुत बार केसेस आते हैं कि क्योंकि ये सब्जेक्ट स्टेट गवर्नमेंट के और हमारे दोनों के साथ है, तो आरटीओ ने भाई लाइसेंस नहीं दिया, तो फिर हम उसके ऊपर उपाय ढूंढते हैं. और ये 9 साल में मैं इसका मंत्री हूँ और मैं विशेष रूप से संवेदनशील हूँ. और मैं आपको कहूँगा कि जो भी दिव्यांग है, ऐसा है जिसको लाइसेंस नहीं मिला है, जिसका प्रॉब्लम है, क्योंकि प्रॉब्लम अलग अलग प्रकार के हैं, किसी के दोनों पैर भी काम नहीं कर रहे, किसी के एक हाथ काम नहीं कर रहा है, तो हम लोग हर चीज़ पर उपाय ढूंढ रहे हैं, नियमों में दुरुस्ती कर रहे हैं और उनको लगातार, हमको समाज के साथ बराबरी में आने का उनका अधिकार है, ये उनका फंडामेंटल राइट है और हमने उनको मदद करनी चाहिए. हमारा कर्तव्य हम कर रहे हैं. इवन आपकी भी नज़रों में ऐसा कहीं आता है कि भाई दिस इज़ ए प्रॉब्लम जिसके कारण नहीं हो रहा है, तो लगभग अभी तक 9 साल में जितने उतने प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व किए, अगर होगा तो मुझे दीजिए, हम उसके ऊपर वे आउट निकालेंगे और सॉल्व करेंगे.
सर, इस इनिशिएटिव के द्वारा हमारी कोशिश ये है कि हम सहानुभूति नहीं लेकिन लोगों को संवेदनशील बनाएं, अपने समाज को भी साथ लेके चलें. हमारा जो ट्रांसपोर्ट विभाग है या आपका मंत्रालय है, किस तरह से जागरूकता फैला सकता है कि जो हमारे दिव्यांग हैं या हमारे विकलांग हैं, उनके प्रति हमारा नज़रिया एक समावेशी हो?
देखिए, पहला तो इम्पोर्टेंट थिंग है पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट में, यानी बड़ा दुख और दर्द का विषय है. हम लोग पूरे विश्व में कहीं भी जाएंगे, गवर्नमेंट ऑफिस में जाएंगे, होटल्स में, 5 स्टार होटल में जाएंगे, रेस्टोरेंट में जाएंगे, एवरीवेयर दिव्यांगजनों के लिए अलग व्यवस्था है. वो कैसे ऊपर जाएंगे? हमारे पूरे बस ट्रांसपोर्ट में अभी तक जिस प्रकार की सिस्टम थी, कभी इनके बारे में विचार ही नहीं किया गया. और ये जो 9,239 बसेस है, इससे मैं समाधानी नहीं हूँ. अब जो फाइनल कोड जिसका नोटिफिकेशन निकलेगा, इसके बाद हर बस ऐसी होगी जिसमें दिव्यांगजनों का पूरा विचार होगा और उनके लिए पूरी सुविधा होगी. और अभी मैं इसके बाद जो बस में नहीं होगी, वो बस को वो मंजूर, वो बन ही नहीं पाएगी. इतने स्ट्रिक्ट नियम हमने बनाए.
इसी की जरूरत है.
First from the minister over here, he acts on what he says, and this is going to change the lives of countless people with disabilities. Gadkari ji, you know, when we talk about opportunities for people with disabilities, we also need to look at it from where we stand in terms of education in this country, and we have some statistics as part of the Samarth initiative. Only 36% of people with disabilities in India are employed. That means more than 60% of people with disabilities do not work. Beyond your ministry, how is it your goal as a political leader to spread the importance of opportunities through education for those with disabilities?
एक्चुअली आपने बहुत अच्छी बात पूछी है. मैंने उज्जैन में एक दिव्यांग पार्क देखा, फिर उससे 3 गुना बड़ा 4 एकड़ जगह पर मैंने एक दिव्यांग पार्क बनाया. उसका कंसल्टेंट उज्जैन से ही है और वहाँ इतना अच्छा है कि ऑल टाइप ऑफ दिव्यांगन, जहाँ वो ब्रेन लिपि में लिखा हाथ लगाएगा तो उसको समझेगा, ऑल टाइप के इक्विपमेंट्स, उनके स्पोर्ट्स के इक्विपमेंट अलग से, तो दिव्यांग पार्क बनाया. फिर हमारे यहाँ मराठी में मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट को खासदार बोलते हैं, खासदार क्रीड़ा महोत्सव. तो अभी वो चालू हो रहा है, जो इनकी भी सहयोग मिलता है उसको. 60,000 प्लेयर खेल रहे हैं और 48 ग्राउंड्स हैं और 53 गेम्स हैं. तो दिव्यांगों के लिए अलग ये होता है. तो अभी मैं 7 एकड़ जगह पर स्पोर्ट्स का केवल दिव्यांगजनों के लिए एक बड़ा ये बना रहा हूँ, स्पोर्ट्स का बड़ा स्टेडियम बना रहा हूँ. और मुझे लगता है कि हर शहर में कम से कम अलग अलग प्रकार का एक गार्डन, एक स्पोर्ट्स के बड़ी अलग अलग प्रकार के, क्योंकि स्पोर्ट्स अलग है, उनके स्पोर्ट्स के नियम अलग है और उनके भाषा अलग है, उनके लिए इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स की जो इक्विपमेंट्स है वो अलग प्रकार की है. इसमें काफ़ी लोगों ने रिसर्च किया और स्टडी किया है और मुझे लगता है कि ये हर व्यक्ति का फंडामेंटल राइट है, वैसे उनका भी है कि उनके विकास के लिए उनके अधिकारों को विचार करते हुए इन सब प्रकार की फैसिलिटी जो आम लोगों के लिए है वही फैसिलिटी उनको मिलनी चाहिए और हर शहर में, हर गांव में इस प्रकार की व्यवस्था होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि अभी इसकी संख्या मेरे अंदाज से 4% से ज़्यादा हो गई है. तो मुझे लगता है कि ये होने से उनको एंटरटेनमेंट होगी, मनोरंजन होगा, उनका पॉजिटिविटी बढ़ेगी, उनका मोरल बढ़ेगा, उनके म्यूज़िक इक्विपमेंट अलग अलग प्रकार के हैं. और एक बात मैंने देखी अब ये कि जो दिव्यांगजन है वो कोई अच्छा बांसुरी बजाता है, कोई अच्छा वायलिन बजाता है, कोई अच्छा गाता है, तो उनमें भी हैंडलूम, हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स में भी अच्छा काम करते हैं. तो हम लोगों ने अभी जो दिव्यांग पार्क बनाया उसमें ऐसी स्पेशल रूम्स बनाई कि वहाँ दिन भर वो सुबह आएंगे और शाम तक रहेंगे और वहाँ वो अलग अलग प्रकार के हैंडलूम, हैंडीक्राफ्ट्स में इधर उधर कुछ चीज़ें बनाएंगे. तो ये बहुत ही अच्छा, जिसमें आप कह रही है वो बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट कि उनको वो बराबरी का अधिकार मिलना चाहिए. सहानुभूति की ज़रूरत नहीं, उनके अधिकारों की रक्षा की ज़रूरत है. जी, आप जैसा कार्यक्रम कर रहे हैं इसमें काफ़ी लोगों तक ये बात पहुँचेगी और धीरे धीरे हमारे देश में इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड की सब प्रकार की सुविधाएं इन सब के लिए प्राप्त होगी और ये सहानुभूति के रूप में नहीं, ये उनका अधिकार है बराबरी का और उनको मिलना चाहिए. यही भूमिका इसके साथ रखनी चाहिए.
आखिर में एक सवाल सर, जो ये हमारी पहल यहाँ पर चल रही है, 1 साल चलेगी Hyundai द्वारा समर्थ की, आपकी क्या उम्मीदें हैं इस तरह के इनिशिएटिव से? क्या मिलके हासिल किया जा सकता है?
देखिए, मैं आपको एक बात बताता हूँ. हमारे यहाँ नागपुर में एक दिव्यांग युवा है, वो पैदल भी चलने की छोड़ो, वो एक दोनों पैर नहीं उसको, वो व्हील चेयर पे, उसकी एक स्पेशल चेयर बनी उसके ऊपर चलता है. उसने एक 20 करोड़ की फैक्ट्री बूटीबोरी एवैडिसी में डाली थी. फैक्ट्री को आग लग गई और जल गई. उसने फिर फैक्ट्री खड़ी की और प्रॉफिट कमा रहा और अच्छा काम कर रहा है और उसको अवार्ड मिल रहा है. तो मैं आपको एक बात कहूँगा कि जैसे आपने आज का कार्यक्रम किया है, तो विशेष रूप से ऐसे जो फिजिकली हैंडीकैप्स हैं और अपने जीवन में जो यशस्वी हुए हैं, उनकी स्टोरी अगर आपके माध्यम से अगर जाएगी तो पॉजिटिविटी और सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस जो लोग आज हैं उनके मन में बढ़ेगा. और मुझे लगता है कि उनमें बहुत टैलेंट है, केवल उनमें आत्मविश्वास बढ़ाने की आवश्यकता है और ऐसे कार्यक्रमों से, ऐसे उदाहरणों से उनका मनोबल भी बढ़ेगा, पॉजिटिविटी बढ़ेगी और आत्मविश्वास बढ़ेगा और वो सभी क्षेत्र में काम कर सकेंगे.
And attitudes will change. Thank you so much, Minister, for being with us. It's always wonderful speaking to you. Before you go, I'd like to invite Mr. Unsu Kim, Managing Director and CEO of Hyundai Motor India, and Mr. Tarun Garg, CEO of Hyundai Motor India, to present Mr. Gadkari with a small memento.
कितना आसान है हमारे लिए एक नजर में सोच लेना कि वो असमर्थ है, जबकि उनका जुनून, उनकी हर जीत ये बताती है कि वो कितने समर्थ हैं। शान से उठे सर को पता है वो कितने समर्थ हैं। जीत पर गूंज रहे राष्ट्रगान के हर शब्द को पता है वो कितने समर्थ हैं। पानी की गहराइयों को पता है वो कितने समर्थ हैं। हर रुकी नजर को पता है कि वो कितने समर्थ हैं। हर निशाने को पता है वो कितने समर्थ हैं। चलो इनकी मिसाल से दुनिया की सोच बदले। चलो एक ऐसी दुनिया बनाएं जहां ये अपने ख्वाब को खुद पूरा कर पाए। समर्थ बाय Hyundai, मंजिल उनकी, साथ हमारा। इस पहल के साथ जुड़े hyundai.co.in पर लॉग इन करें।
मैं तो लुट-पुट गया, लुट-पुट गया, मैं तो गया, मैं तो लुट-पुट गया, लुट-पुट गया, उड़ की करा, मैं तो चिक-पक-दुम।
क्या चल रहा है?
लिविंग रूम में जैकवार लग रहा है।
लिविंग रूम में?
That was too funny ना।
वैसे खन्ना, तेरा वो लंदन ट्रिप कैसा था यार?
What a fantastic holiday यार।
And where were you guys staying?
Very close to अपना Big Ben।
Moit's cousin stays there.
And those Indian restaurants? भाई साहब, जैकवार लाइट्स लग रही है।
The largest bath brand in the country now also brings you the magic of light. Jaguar Bath and Lights.
In a world with rapidly shifting power dynamics, India is emerging as a global power. With its new standing, how do Indians view the world?
Welcome back everyone to this special show celebrating Samarth by Hyundai. We hope this initiative will deliver an ACE, so to speak, for those with any kind of disability, and we're using ACE here as an acronym, if you like. A is for accessibility, whether in trains, planes, offices, stadiums. C is for us making this a more caring world, and E for employability. This is a long-term vision, but there is an immediate plan. Hyundai is supporting 6 of our para-athletes in their quest to win medals for India. The next big event is, of course, the Paralympics in Paris in 2024. And the first one of... Yes, you can cheer very loudly. You can catcall. Anybody free to whistle as well? Whistles invited too. So the very first one is Sheetal Devi, the world's first female archer without arms to win a world medal. She's just 16 from Jammu and won 2 golds in a single edition of the Asian Para Championships this year in China. Her images shooting bullseye with her feet went viral. She's preparing for an event and could not join us in person, but will join us on a live link. Thank you, Sheetal. अगर आप सुन पा रहे हो, thank you हमसे बात करने के लिए. Thank you. राइट शीतल, अभी हम आपसे बात करेंगे, पर अब वक्त है बाकियों को इंट्रोड्यूस करने के लिए. वी हैव प्राची यादव. प्लीज कम एंड cheer for her as loudly as you can. The first Indian to win a gold in the para canoeing event in the Asian Para Championships in 2023. She's won 4 gold, 1 silver and 1 bronze in different international para events, and she's here. Abhishek Chamoli, feel free to wave out to our audience over here. Won a bronze medal in men's javelin in the Asian Para Championships this year in China. He has medals in the World Para Athletics events, even in shot put. Yogesh Katunya, you can say hello as well to everybody. He won silver in the men's discus throw in the Asian Para Games in 2023 in China. Just to remind our viewers that India actually won more medals at the Para Games this year than at the Asian Games. It was 111 medals in the Para Games and 107 in the Asian Games. So yeah, you can cheer a little loudly for that as well. Simran Sharma, please say hello to everybody as well. And Simran is a national level parachuter, has won a total of 11 medals in the last 3 nationals, of which 6 were gold medals. And we also have with us Lakshmi Jadal. He is the first Indian tennis player with an intellectual impairment to have competed in this year's Virtuous Global Games. He's here with his dad Suresh. A really warm welcome to both of you as well. We would also like to invite another star Paralympian, not part of the 6 who are going to be supported by Samarth by Hyundai, but he is a very special person. Suhas Yathiraj is here in a dual capacity. Not only is he a medalist, a silver medalist from the Tokyo Paralympics, but he also has the unique distinction of now being a policy maker because he's an IAS officer. Huge round of applause for him. Deepa Malik is somebody who really needs no introduction. She's one of the most well-known faces, not just from India, but around the world. And while she came over here, the way she was being mobbed for photos and selfies kind of explained it. She was the first Indian woman to win a medal at the Paralympics for India with her silver in shot put at the Rio Paralympics. And now giving back to the sport as president of the Paralympics Committee of India, or PCI. And also joining us is another lovely Malik lady, and happens to be Deepa's daughter, but a para-athlete in her own right, a very motivational speaker, somebody who took part in the Para-Asian Games this year and bettered her own national record, and co-founder of the Wheeling Happiness Foundation, which helps people with disability in every which way possible. Deepa, I want to start with you.
Yeah.
You have done for disability sport what Sania Mirza and Saina Nehwal did for sports for women in general. How many people come up to you and say, "Hame aapki tarah banna hai"?
I feel humbled when you say that, and I feel equally humbled, and I find purpose in my life when someone walks up and says, "We want to play like you do," or when the girls, especially in the rural area, I hail from Haryana, go back and tell their parents they are wheelchair users or they are in some disability, and they say they want to play. And when parents turn around and ask them, "वो कौन सा वाला खेल खेलोगी जो दीपा खेलती है?" So if that's the benchmark, one has been able to, अच्छा दीपा मलिक जो खेल है वो तो बहुत सुथरा खेल है. So that is where you feel that yes, you have become the change that you wanted to see around you.
Wow, I love that accent. Can you do more? Deepa, also, there's been a significant change since you took over. You took over in 2020, just before the Tokyo Paralympics.
Yes.
How many medals did we get there? Remind me.
Okay, so I won't say that it is only because of me, but I have to thank the government for the inclusive policies, focus of Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi in person, and accountability. Like we just heard Hardeep Puri sir say that now you have to be accountable for your work and you have to really deliver if you have been given a responsibility. And I'm fortunate to get that support through inclusive schemes in sports. But yes, I'm very proud to say that when I won my medal, and I think it was one of the NDTV conclaves, which was the first one for me. As soon as I landed in India, I was immediately taken to the Taj Hotel where this youth conclave was going on, and I was asked in one such platform that how do you feel being the first woman to win a medal, and I said this is a moment of paradox for me, because with the happiness of a medal coming to a female in India comes a question with it, that what took independent India so long to make one? More than 7 decades and we did not have a medal, whereas the first medal which came among the male was in 1972 when Petkar sir won his medal. So I think from there to today we were 3 girls in Rio, but there were 14 girls in Tokyo 2020.
And that tells the story.
And that is the story. We had 40% participation in the Asian Para Games, which were recently held in China, and 40% medals were also contributed by women para-athletes.
Wow.
So it's not just a symbolic participation, but it is also in terms of winning medals and adding medals. 9 golds to the medal tally were given by women, by female medals. And if there was 1 medal in Rio, there were 3 medals, women medals, in Tokyo. So 300% increase that has happened. So we are really, like, we just had a comparison. But if I may elaborate, as a proud president of Paralympic Committee of India, if I may elaborate that the Asian Games contingent was 700 plus in, I think, 35 plus or 40 plus sports. But our contingent was just 309 para-athletes in 17 sports. And if we see sports in Asian Para Games Jakarta in 2018, we had participated in only 9 sports.
Right.
And this time we have participated in 17 sports.
Wow.
So you can see the growth that has happened. And
You may not want to take
yeah,
credit, but we're giving it to you.
Yeah, so
Deepa, you're an icon for everybody.
Thank you.
Let me ask your daughter what she thinks about. Do you fight with your mum, or do you see her as the icon at home as well?
Taking inspiration from the way she has given back to people with disabilities in the community, I have kind of, tried to follow the same footsteps, and I'm similarly focused on assisting people with disabilities, especially in the rural areas, to come up not just in sport but in any field of their choice, and that is the kind of initiatives that we have been undertaking. And like you said, I myself am also an athlete, and I have just participated at the Asian Para Games. But the entire trajectory of my life, especially living with a disability myself, would have been very different if I did not have her to draw inspiration from.
She's an inspiration for all of us. Prachi, हमारी बात हो रही थी और मैं आपसे पूछ रही थी कि अगर आपको एक लाइन देनी हो किसी को भी मोटिवेट करने के लिए, तो आप क्या बोलेंगे? पैरा कैनोइंग करने के लिए या जो भी स्पोर्ट करने के लिए आप क्या इंस्पिरेशन देंगे?
मेरे जितने भी दिव्यांगजन हैं वो उनको मैं यही कहना चाहूँगी कि आपकी जो दिव्यांगता होती है, अगर आपने दिमाग से सोच लिया कि आप दिव्यांग हैं तो आप दिव्यांग हैं। अगर आप शरीर से दिव्यांग नहीं होते, अगर आपने मन में ठान लिया कि आप कुछ करना चाहते हैं तो आपको करने से कोई नहीं रोक सकता है। जैसे मैंने भी जब शुरुआत की थी स्पोर्ट्स की, मेरे रिश्तेदार वगैरह सब बोलते थे क्या कर सकती है, कुछ नहीं कर सकती, ये साइकिल भी नहीं चला सकती, ये चल नहीं सकती। जब मैं फर्स्ट टाइम मेरे पिताजी मुझे स्कूल में एडमिशन कराने गए थे तब उन्होंने मुझे लेने से मना कर दिया था कि आपकी बेटी यहाँ पर कैसे हैंडल करेगी, इसको कौन सपोर्ट करेगा। मैंने काफ़ी तकलीफ़ें झेली है, मेरे पापा ने मुझे काफ़ी सपोर्ट किया। तो मेरा तो यही मानना है कि अगर आप दिमाग से स्ट्रॉन्ग हैं तो आप किसी भी जंग को जीत सकते हैं, जैसे मैंने जीता था।
बहुत सही बोले आप। अब मैं किसी से पूछना चाहती हूँ जिन्होंने ऑलरेडी मुझे थोड़ी सी हिंट दे दी थी कि वो बहुत अच्छा गाना गाते हैं। सो आप अपना इंस्पिरेशनल गाना हमें गा करके सुनाएंगे।
अच्छा, ये तो हमें भी नहीं पता था।
मैं अगर गाना गाने लग गया तो सब लोग चले जाएंगे यहाँ से।
नहीं, हम बिल्कुल नहीं जाएंगे, हम सुनने को तैयार हैं।
मैं गाना नहीं, लेकिन मैं एक मोटिवेशनल लाइन बोलना चाहूँगा। हालांकि ये सबने सुनी होगी और बचपन से हम जब छोटे होते थे तो सब लोगों ने 101% सुनी होगी। और उस मोटिवेशनल लाइन से मुझे मतलब मैं बहुत ज़्यादा मोटिवेट होता हूँ, हमेशा सुबह उठता हूँ और उसको बार बार रिपीट करता हूँ। मैंने उस लाइन को लिखा भी हुआ अपने वॉल के ऊपर कि लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, लहरों से डरकर नौका पार नहीं होती, कोशिश करने वालों को कभी हार नहीं होती। तो मैं हमेशा कोशिश करता रहता हूँ कि मैं अपने आप को डे बाय डे इम्प्रूव करूँ।
That's lovely। और आपसे हम क्या सुनना चाहेंगे?
मेरी स्टोरी।
आप अपने एक्सीडेंट के बारे में मुझे बता रहे थे।
तो मैं ऐसा नहीं था, मेरा 2016 में बाइक एक्सीडेंट हुआ एंड देन वेयर आई गॉट माय सुपर एबिलिटी एज मैम सेड अर्लियर। एंड उसके बाद मैंने काफ़ी रिसर्च करी एंड अंडर द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ दीपा मैम आई केम टू नो अबाउट पैरालंपिक्स। एंड उसके बाद आफ्टर कोरोना आई स्टार्टेड प्लेइंग फॉर माय कंट्री इंडिया एंड हियर आई एम इन फ्रंट ऑफ ऑल ऑफ यू विद सम मेडल्स एंड मेनी मोर टू कम।
Thank you. So Has, we haven't heard from you at all right now, but you are in a position to change policy because you're in the government. You're posted in Lucknow right now in the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. But first I want to ask you, the only exam that ChatGPT could not pass was the civil services. So now you have to be put on the mat. Civil services exam was harder, or winning para badminton medals is harder?
UPSC exam, or for that matter any other exam, you have to write once. But in sports, if you want to succeed, every match starts from 0-0. So yes, both are difficult in their own senses. It's like comparing apples to oranges. But I'd like to say one thing. Generally पहले कहते थे कि अगर पढ़ोगे लिखोगे होगे नवाब, खेलोगे कूदोगे होंगे खराब। तो आज की तारीख में इंडिया हैज नॉट ओनली बिकम अ स्पोर्ट्स वॉचिंग नेशन, इंडिया इज बिकमिंग अ स्पोर्ट्स प्लेइंग नेशन। तो पढ़ोगे लिखोगे होगे नवाब तो है ही, खेलोगे कूदोगे होगे लाजवाब भी है। तो इसलिए
And Samarth, the biggest example of this is Sheetal Devi. I think everybody saw her images. She uses her feet to do archery and she's joining us. She couldn't be here in person. शीतल, आपने इतना शानदार प्रदर्शन किया एशियन पैरा टूर्नामेंट में और वापस आकर के आप प्रधानमंत्री से भी मिली थी, क्या बोला उन्होंने आपको?
मैं प्रधानमंत्री जी से मिली थी तो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा मिलकर, अपना आशीर्वाद दिया, मोटिवेट किया। जैसे लोगों के पास अब वीडियो पहुंची है, देखते हैं वो भी, उनको भी अच्छा लगता होगा, मुझे भी बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है।
आपके हीरोज कौन है, किसको श्रेय जाता है आपको चैंपियन बनाने के लिए?
कोचेस को और प्रीति दीदी को और माता पिता को।
ओके, सो हम अपने दर्शकों को बता दें कि ये प्रीति मैम हैं जिन्होंने शीतल को इंट्रोड्यूस करा था स्पोर्ट्स के लिए। पर शीतल, लोगों को क्या गलत फहमियाँ थी आपके बारे में चैंपियन बनने से पहले, क्या बोलते थे आपको?
जैसे लोगों को लगता था कि ये कुछ नहीं कर पाएगी और मुझे भी लग रहा था कि मैं नहीं कर पाऊंगी, बट यहाँ तक पहुँचाने में मुझे कोच का हाथ है। आज मैं जो यहाँ पे खड़ी हूँ अपनी कोच की वजह से खड़ी हूँ।
ऑफ कोर्स कोच का बहुत बड़ा रोल होता है, पर आप बताना चाहोगे हमारे दर्शकों को कि आप अपने पैरों से क्या क्या कर लेती हैं?
वैसे मैं बताऊं कि मैं बचपन से ही अपने पैर से काम करती हूँ, लिखना, पढ़ाई करना, खेलना, पेड़ पे चढ़ना, सब बचपन से ही। अब तीर भी चला रही हूँ पैर से।
दीपा, you know, she also told us, you know, off camera that she met an archer who also does archery with his feet. Mark Stutzman, I think his name is.
Yes.
And his story is remarkable. He says he started learning archery as a way to put food on the table. He lives in America, in Iowa, and he said he needed to shoot deer to literally put food on the table. He was given up for adoption at 3 years. It's a daily battle, right? This life in some way?
Yes, I think, but I'm glad we have platforms like this where discussion is being done. There is a lot of conversation on the topic. A lot of people, stakeholders are now coming together to support. And the narrative is changing, and it's changing fast. And I feel that each one of us has to take the onus. Some way or the other, each one of us has to question themselves that what is the contribution that you have done to make India more accessible, to change one mindset. And I think it's going to have a ripple effect, and we can together bring the change. Struggles are there, but like I said, I'm again a very positive thinking person, and I always inspire. So it is also important for persons with disability to take onus, take responsibility, understand that they're a vital part of a nation where they need to give back to the society.
Right.
So they also have to develop a skill, educate themselves, or find their purpose so that they can contribute in nation building.
Yeah.
So, and demand and ask.
Yeah. I'd also like to ask Lakshmi's father, Suresh, to say a few words to us. Suresh, a message for other parents who go through this on a pretty much a daily basis, the challenge of bringing up a child who is different.
As he is an intellectual disability, I found out the interest of the child. First of all, we have to see the interest of the child. I see the child is seeing the sunset and dreaming about to go for the tennis. He play tennis. That's the way we have to find out the.
और आप लोग 20 किलोमीटर ड्राइव करते हो रोज to make sure that he can have his tennis practice.
30 से 40 किलोमीटर ड्राइव करते हैं, हर रोज 7 hours प्रैक्टिस करता है. And he is selected for the Australian Open 2024.
We're really looking forward to that. I'd also like to take this opportunity now to call the Minister of State for Health, Mr. S.P. Baghel. I think he's here right now. आ जाइए sir. बघेल साहब, अगर मैं आपसे पूछ पाऊँ कि ये जो इनिशिएटिव है समर्थ बाय Hyundai, जिसमें इमीडिएटली ये हो रहा है कि हमारे 6 पैरा एथलीट्स को सपोर्ट मिलेगा अगले साल के लिए ताकि ये इंडिया के लिए मेडल्स ले पाएं। आप इस इनिशिएटिव के बारे में क्या बोलना चाहेंगे?
सबसे पहले मैं NDTV का और Hyundai का आभार प्रकट करना चाहूँगा, जो हमारे पैरा ओलंपिक में पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं। मैं कह रहा था अभी कि सुहास जी इज द रोल मॉडल फॉर ऑल द प्लेयर्स, नॉट ओनली पैरा प्लेयर्स बल्कि जनरल स्टूडेंट हु इज ट्राइंग फॉर UPSC। यू आर पैरा ओलंपियन एज वेल एज द कलेक्टर ऑफ आई थिंक गाजियाबाद और नोएडा। तो आप तो रोल मॉडल, दो बातें हैं, स्पोर्ट्स के लिए भी है और एक जो दिल्ली में ख़ास तौर से जो तैयारी कर रहे हैं UPSC की, उन बच्चों के लिए आप रोल मॉडल हैं कि किस प्रकार से UPSC भी क्वालिफाई किया जा सकता है। तो NDTV का आभार और ख़ास तौर से Hyundai का कि उन्होंने एक बहुत ही अच्छे विषय को लेकर के और इन लोगों का अभिनंदन करने का काम किया है। मैं जब असेंबली का चुनाव लड़ रहा था तो ऑब्जर्वर से मिलने गया तो वो दृष्टिबाधित थे, तो मैं सोचा कि जो ऑब्जर्वर वो अपने फादर को लेके आए हैं, तो मैंने वहाँ चपरासी से कहा कि ज़रा ऑब्जर्वर से बात करनी है, मैं असेंबली चुनाव लड़ रहा था। तो वो बोले मैं ही हूँ ऑब्जर्वर। तो इंदिरा गांधी से जब पूछा गया था कि हु इज योर रोल मॉडल इन द वर्ल्ड, तो मैं सोचा कि नेहरू को ही बोलेंगे, क्योंकि नेहरू भी आम आदमी नहीं थे, बहुत आज भी प्रधानमंत्री भी रहे, लेकिन जो डिस्कवरी ऑफ इंडिया मैंने पढ़ी है या ग्लिम्पेज ऑफ वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री या लेटर्स फ्रॉम फादर टू डॉटर, वो अपने आप में किसी भी इतिहासकार से कम नहीं है, एक अच्छे राइटर हैं। तो इंदिरा गांधी का जवाब था कि माई रोल मॉडल इज हेलन केलर, नॉट मोतीलाल नेहरू और जवाहरलाल नेहरू और महात्मा गांधी। तो फिर मैंने पता किया भाई ये हेलन केलर कौन थे, तो ही वॉज द फर्स्ट ग्रेजुएट, ब्लाइंड ग्रेजुएट जो लुई ब्रेल पद्धति से हुए थे। मैं केवल आपके माध्यम से पूरे देश में आप सुने और देखे जाते हो, तो मैं अपने दिव्यांग भाई बहनों से कहना चाहूँगा कि पैरामेडिकल में आए, पॉलिटिक्स में आए, ऐसी बात नहीं है, लोग MP MLA भी हुए हैं। 14 से पहले केवल 7 प्रकार की दिव्यांगता थी, इसलिए दिव्यांग होते हुए भी, दिव्यांग ना होते हुए, दिव्यांग का प्रमाण पत्र ना मिलने पर हर प्रकार की सुविधाओं से वो वंचित रहते थे। आपकी वैसे आपको पता ही होगा, आप भी सब रिसर्च करके आए होंगे, अब 21 प्रकार की दिव्यांगता है। इसका मतलब है दिव्यांग भाई बहनों की संख्या बढ़ गई, लाभार्थियों की भी संख्या बढ़ जाएगी।
एक और नंबर भी है, यहाँ पे सारे जो चैंपियंस बैठे हुए हैं ये दुनिया में 1 या 2 या 3 नंबर पे आए हुए हैं वर्ल्ड स्टेज पे, तो हम इनको सेलिब्रेट करना चाहेंगे। फिर भी मैं एक बार और रिक्वेस्ट करूंगी कि ये फोटो आप हम लूज नहीं करना चाहते हैं, जहां आप हमारे पैरा एथलीट्स को एक मेमेंटो प्रेजेंट करेंगे।